Chapter 104. I used 20 years of my life force in exchange for a sentence of guidance for you. You must remember it. Tianji's body retreated slowly. At this moment, he seemed to have become the core of the world. Be it Jidong or Yao Qianshu, they both felt as if their bodies were restricted by an invisible force and could not move. Meanwhile, Tianji, who was retreating continuously, underwent a shocking change. His face, which looked like he was in his 30s, was aging at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the blink of an eye, he turned from a middle-aged man to an old man. Even his voice had aged. Chaos awakens in the flaming bar. God will bring endless sorrow and extreme pain. It is also the time to break out of the cocoon and be reborn. Illusion, reality, the soul struggles in the flaming bar, shattering in the flaming bar for eternal life. When the flaming bar reappears in the world, the will of the heavens will change. Emptiness, illusion, emptiness. You cannot see the endless future. I only hope that the ending is not a tragedy. Remember. As the old voice gradually faded away, Tianji also disappeared without a trace. The surrounding illusion twisted slightly, and Jidong and Yao Qianshu felt their bodies lighten, and everything returned to normal. They were still on the bustling streets. The sun was shining brightly, and Tianji City was still bustling with noise. From time to time, they could still hear people discussing the fire in Viscount's house. Are you really a dual attribute holy disciple? Does that mean that you have the ultimate dual fire? Yao Qianshu's eyes were filled with disbelief. His indifference from when they first met had been replaced by an anxious look. Tianji's words were like a brand that was deeply engraved in Jidong's mind. He could not forget it even if he wanted to. The aged voice reverberated in his mind. There was a hint of eeriness in it, but it was more like the miraculousness of the illusion. If Tianji's words were only about what happened to Jidong, he would not care or laugh it off. However, in his words, there were 4 words: flaming bar. Flaming bar. These 2 words could touch the depths of Jidong's soul. The chaos awakened in the flaming bar. This was the first sentence said by Tianji. After hearing this sentence, Jidong truly believed in Tianji's prediction ability. He was an atheist, but he couldn't imagine how Tianji knew that he had the embryonic form of the chaos. Even Zhu Rong and Yin Xiaorong only knew that the chaos had appeared in his body, but they didn't know the relationship between the chaos and the flaming bar. Yao Qianshu must have thought that the flaming bar described the flame, but Jidong understood that the flaming bar mentioned by Tianji referred to the most important person in his life. There was only one person who knew that his embryonic form of the chaos was condensed with the help of the flaming bar, and that was Jidong himself. It was a vague feeling. After the flaming bar merged that bit of chaos into his body, he sensed the power of the flaming bar. Meanwhile, he faintly guessed that this closed-door cultivation of the flaming bar had a great relationship with the help of the chaos condensed in the center of the yin and yang swirl. This could be said to be the deepest secret in his heart. Since Tianji could see through it with a single sentence, he couldn't think of a second possibility. Since the flaming bar didn't even tell him about it, how could it tell others about it? From a second sentence that Tianji left behind, Jidong felt a sense of trepidation. Without a doubt, the second sentence and every sentence after that did not happen. God will bring endless sorrow. What did this mean? God will bring sorrow? Is there really a God in this world? Hey, get excited. Yao Qianshu saw that Jidong was ignoring him, and his eyes were still filled with confusion, so he couldn't help but call out to him. With his thoughts interrupted, Jidong looked at Yao Qianshu for the first time. Now I'm interested to hear more about the heavenly stem saint. If it was related to himself, he could ignore it. However, Tianji's words were related to the flaming bar, so he couldn't ignore it. If Tianji's instantaneous aging was not an illusion, but a prediction made by sacrificing his life force, then the meaning of the sentence that he left behind was worth pondering deeply. When Yao Qianshu saw that Jidong no longer rejected him, he couldn't help but be overjoyed. Then let's go somewhere else. Jidong nodded. He didn't need to worry about any trouble in Tianji City at all. Since he was the Saint King mentioned by Tianji, why would he send someone to catch him? The two found another restaurant and sat down again in a private room. They ordered a few dishes. Yao Qianshu was still careful to isolate the sound in the room with his emerald first wood magic. The existence of US 10 saints can be traced back to the time when the two continents were just formed. Since you have been in the Yin and Yang College, you naturally know about the current Holy Evil Battlefield and the Holy Evil Passage. I won't go into details, but do you know how the current Holy Evil Battlefield was formed? And the rules of the Holy Evil Battlefield and the Holy Evil Passage, and even in the strait between the two continents, why are there so many powerful demonic sea beasts? Jidong's eyes moved. After meeting Tianji, he couldn't help but be interested in the organization of Heavenly Stem Saints. Whether it was for the Flaming Bar or himself, he must understand everything about Heavenly Stem Saints in detail. You're not telling me that these are all related to the 10 saints, are you? Yao Qianshu nodded solemnly and said, "That's right. As early as 10,000 years ago, our two continents were not connected. Although there were battles on each continent, overall, it was still stable. However, I don't know why, our two continents were actually getting closer to each other. When both sides could see each other from afar, contact began." Jidong was surprised. Continental plate drift? This time, it was Yao Qianshu's turn to be surprised. What is continental plate drift? Jidong said, "If in our world, the ocean occupies a large part of the area, then it can be understood that each continent is actually immersed in the ocean, always moving, but the speed of movement is extremely slow. The two continents met, probably because of the drift of each other. And then? Go on." Yao Qianshu said, "In the beginning, both sides were only in contact with each other. To their surprise, they found out that the other side was also a continent of 5 elements, but the 5 elements were different. They had the aura of light and darkness, respectively. Light and darkness are opposites, far greater than fire and water, just like the sun and the moon can appear at the same time. The repulsion of their attributes caused war. It's hard for you to imagine, but 10,000 years ago, because of the appearance of the two continents, the maritime industry was extremely developed, and the holy war on behalf of their respective interests began. Every war was devastating, but both sides could only continue the war unless one side was completely destroyed. However, the strength of the two continents was too close, and no one could completely destroy the other when they had the upper hand. For hundreds of years, the population of both continents plummeted, but the war that was like a meat grinder still continued. The reason why so many demonic sea beasts appeared in the straits was because a large number of powerhouses' corpses had sunk into the sea at that time and were devoured and nourished by ordinary sea beasts, forming the embryonic form of demonic sea beasts. Seeing that both sides had suffered great losses and were about to perish together, the first generation of Heavenly Stems Saints came into being. Not only do Heavenly Stems Saints exist in the 5 elements continent of light, but there are also Heavenly Stems Saints in the 5 elements continent of darkness. When the light and darkness saints grew up under the leadership of their respective saint kings, a battle between peerless powerhouses unfolded on the sea. You can imagine the final result. It was still a lose-lose situation. At the last moment, both sides regretted and understood that if it went on like this, the humans on both continents would probably be wiped out. So after careful discussion, the 20 saints used their powerful magic to carry out an unprecedented transformation. At that time, the holy kings of both sides were at the peak of the earth element. At that time, the saint kings of both sides were at the peak of the earth element. The two saint kings used the power of light and darkness to change the terrain between the two continents. Between the two continents, the evil island was born, and the passage to the evil saint island was formed with their powerful magic power. When this was done, the 6 saints of earth, metal, and fire were sacrificed because their magic power was exhausted. Metal gave birth to fire, and fire gave birth to earth. With the cooperation of the 6 saints, they completed the connection and restriction of the two continents. After that, there were only the wood and water elements left. Therefore, the 4 saints of wood from both sides turned themselves into a forest and formed the evil island, which is also the ancient forest on the battlefield of the evil saint. At the price of their powerful vitality, they summoned the powerful magical beasts of the two continents to guard it, and then sealed it, forming the current appearance of the evil island. The four saints of water from both sides turned themselves into nutrients in the water, integrated into the strait, and completely helped the demonic sea beasts to grow. In the strait, hurricanes and tsunamis were formed, but they did not affect the two continents. Jidong took a deep breath. Although he could not see the scene at that time, he could totally imagine the efforts made by the 20 saints of both sides to stop the holy war between the two continents. With the power of 20 people, they changed the natural environment and formed such a huge island. How horrible was that? Was it really something that humans could do? If they were gods, it would not be wrong. At the same time, he could not help but have some respect for the 20 saints. In order to stop the war, they sacrificed their lives. After saying this, Yao Qinshu seemed to be a little breathless. He paused for a while and then continued. After the formation of the evil island, it became the only connection between the two continents. Before the formation of the evil island, the 20 saints strongly restricted the countries of each continent not to build any navigation facilities. Otherwise, they would be cursed by the saints. The second generation of saints was born a few decades later. They had a new mission, which was to protect the passage to the evil saint and to supervise the countries of each continent not to build navigation facilities. Jidong interrupted. I don't understand. Since the first generation of saints didn't want to let the war continue, why didn't they completely separate the two continents? Why do they still keep the two continents connected? Yao Qinshu said, regarding this point, generations of holy disciples have come to two conclusions after researching it. The first conclusion is that, as you said, the tectonic plates of the continents are drifting, and the two continents are still slowly approaching each other. Only through this method can the two continents be connected together so that they won't get too close to each other. The other conclusion is that both sides have selfish motives. They ultimately hope to defeat the other party and completely unify the two continents, which is why they left this passageway. After listening to the first conclusion, Jidong had already agreed with Yao Qinshu's words. Indeed, if the two continents that were close to each other were supported, no matter how they moved, they would only move in the same direction and could not get close to each other. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but admire the first generation of saints even more. What a huge project it was. Yao Qinshu said, from the birth of the second generation of saints, the war between the two sides stopped. The magical beasts on the holy evil island were too terrifying. Ordinary soldiers and even ordinary devil masters couldn't enter it easily. Relying on the huge holy evil island, which is now called the holy evil battlefield, the two sides were truly isolated. The war also stopped, and the two continents were able to recuperate. However, the mission of the saints on the Radiance continent didn't end there. They began to work hard to restrain the countries of their respective continents. They destroyed all the documents about the war between the two continents one by one. At the same time, they issued a ban, blocked all the information, diluted the hatred, and with the passage of time, they forgot everything about the war between the two continents. Only by forgetting the hatred could they usher in true peace, which is what you see now. As for the establishment of the Heavenly Deity Academy, it was actually initiated by the saints in the beginning. Later, it developed into a competition mechanism between the two continents. Only in this way could the two sides test each other's strength. In the hundreds of years after the establishment of the Heavenly Deity Academy, after the disappearance of the first generation of saints, no more saints appeared. Up to now, it has been more than 500 years. We are the second generation of saints. As for why we appeared, Tianji had already explained it very clearly. The saints of Heavenly Deity came into being. In times of peace, they don't need us. I'm afraid that some upheaval is going to happen on the continent, and our duty is to find the cause of the crisis and solve it to ensure the continuation of peace. Speaking up to here, Yao Qinshu sighed and said, after not appearing for 500 years, I'm afraid that the entire Radiance continent has already forgotten about us. However, our responsibility is unprecedentedly great, No one wants to see people in misery and suffering. There is still more than a year before the Holy Evil Passage will open again. I think the crisis should have a lot to do with the Holy Evil battlefield. Chapter 105. After listening to Yao Qianshu's words, Ji Dong had an understanding of the existence of the heavenly stem holy disciples. He said, "Just now, Tianji said that we still have 7 years left. The holy and demonic passage opens once every 5 years, which means that the next time the holy and demonic passage opens, there will be a crisis." Yao Qianshu nodded and said, "That's right. Before meeting you, we have already discussed with the holy disciples. That is, after a year, when the holy and demonic passage opens, we will go to the holy and demonic battlefield to see if there is a problem there." Ji Dong said, "Who is Tianji? What does he have to do with a heavenly stem holy disciple?" Yao Qianshu's eyes revealed a look of respect as he said, "Tianji is different from us saints. We were born at the right time, while Tianji is passed down from generation to generation. Until now, it has been passed down for more than 100 generations. When the saints don't appear, they're just ordinary prophets, but when we saints appear, they are our guides. Every generation of Tianji has stored all the information and history of the heavenly stem saints. They're the most respectable people. Perhaps there are still people who know of the existence of the saints, but who knows that behind the saints, there are Tianji who has been silently contributing? I didn't expect that the kid you helped would be the next Tianji. Tianji will guide us. If the Holy King is the core and leader of the heavenly stem holy disciples, then Tianji is the strategist and soul of the heavenly stem holy disciples." Ji Dong said, "I understand." Yao Qianshu said, "Then what do you plan to do?" Ji Dong said, "I was planning to travel to the Easternwood Empire, but since you insist that I am a holy disciple, I will go with you. I'm also very interested in the holy and demonic battlefield. If I didn't leave the Yin-Yang school, I am afraid that this year's heavenly stem holy disciples would enter the holy and demonic battlefield." Yao Qianshu breathed a sigh of relief. "It is really not easy to convince you. It is said that the fire element is stubborn. This time I have seen it for myself." Ji Dong said, "Everyone has their own beliefs. It is just that they're different. Eat something. Don't waste any more." After business was done, the two of them started to eat. Although the dishes were a little cold, they were still delicious. What made Ji Dong speechless was that Yao Qianshu looked like he was sweeping the table. He had only eaten a few mouthfuls when the dishes were already gone. "Waiter, the bill." Yao Qianshu removed his extreme first with magic and shouted. Just as the waiter was about to enter the room, Yao Qianshu pointed at Ji Dong and said, "Ask him for money." "Ah." Ji Dong frowned, "Why me?" Yao Qianshu said, "Qianshu." Yao said, Ji Dong said, "Tianji, it is Dong." Yu Qianfeng said, "What a waste. If you hadn't run so fast, I would have packed it." Looking at the pained expression on his face, Ji Dong said as he paid for the meal, "No wonder Yun Tianji said that you're known as a greedy person. You're really stingy to the extreme." Yao Qianshu rolled his eyes and said, "This is called saving." Ji Dong couldn't be bothered to argue with him about such trivial matters. He stood up and walked out of the restaurant, one after the other. Yao Qianshu was slightly taller than Ji Dong. After all, he was a fully developed youth. He lowered his head slightly and whispered into Ji Dong's ear, "We don't have to rush to the Tumu Empire. After all, there's still more than a year's time. I have a good place to go. Why don't we go together? It's a very exciting adventure. I was planning to go alone, but it's good that I met you. With our wood and fire working together, we'll definitely be successful in every endeavor." "Not interested, I am not going." Ji Dong didn't even ask where Yao Qianshu wanted to go and flatly rejected him. He had lived for 30 years in his past life, so he had a wealth of experience in society. When he saw Yao Qianshu's eyes flashing with the light of gold coins, he knew that it was nothing good. "Ah, Ji Dong, we're companions after all. Going to that place will be good for you, too. Aren't you interested in an adventure? We're both young. Can't you be a little curious?" Ji Dong looked at Yao Qianshu's scoundrelly expression, raised his eyebrows, and said, "Not interested. Tianji told you to follow me, not the other way around. You haven't forgotten that." Have you? Yao Qinshu sighed and said, I am defeated by you. How about this? I hire you to go with me. How about that? I will pay a high price. A smile appeared on Jidong's face. He did not know why, but seeing this guy who was known as medicine cures fatal diseases, money saves destined ones, suffer pain, made him feel good. How much are you paying? Yao Qinshu asked with a bitter face. 100 gold coins. How about that? Jidong looked at him strangely and said, So holy disciples are so cheap. I'm scared of you. Are you really only 15? Why are you so hard to deal with? All right, I will use these things to exchange with you. As he spoke, Yao Qinshu fished out a porcelain bottle from somewhere and handed it to Jidong. Jidong took the bottle and opened it. There seemed to be a few red pills inside. He said, What is this? Yao Qinshu said proudly, Magic recovery pill. This is the only one in the whole continent. Only I can refine it. It is worth 1,000 gold coins. As long as you are willing to go with me, I will give you 10. Effect? Jidong's question was simple and powerful. Yao Qinshu said, The bottle in your hand is a third-grade mana recovery pill. An ordinary magician only needs to take one, and their mana will slowly recover. It can completely replenish the mana of a third-grade fire-type magician. Jidong said, Isn't it the same effect as a third-grade sea fire crystal core? Isn't this thing of little value? Yao Qinshu said angrily, One look, and I can tell that you're a reckless wastrel. Directly absorbing mana from a crystal core is one of the most wasteful methods. I can make 5 of these pills from a third-grade fire crystal core. Moreover, this is only a very common mana pill of mine. As he said this, he saw Jidong looking at him with a smile that was not a smile. Only then did he realize that he had spilled the beans. Worth 1,000 gold coins? Why do I remember that a third-grade fire crystal core is only worth about 200 gold coins? One crystal core can make 5 pills, and you still tell me it is worth 1,000 gold coins? The price of a magical beast crystal core was almost the same in every country on the continent. A crystal core was worth about 2 gold coins. For every increase in the crystal core, the price was multiplied by 10. Crystal cores above the 6th grade were almost rare. The price depended on the specific crystal core to estimate. Yao Qinshu laughed bitterly and said, I have been defeated by you. What do you want in order to help me? Jidong said, I can help you, but I also have a condition. In the future, I will provide crystal cores, and you will help me turn them all into magic recovery pills. This? Yao Qinshu hesitated, his eyes revealing a thoughtful light. He said, All right, with my current magic, I can refine crystal cores below the 4th grade. Jidong smiled slightly and nodded to Yao Qinshu. He said, All right, I will give you the crystal cores later. Yao Qinshu asked tentatively, Don't tell me you have a lot of crystal cores? Jidong shook his head and said, Not much. Yao Qinshu laughed and said, That's good. Just over 200. Jidong grinned, revealing a set of white teeth. He was smart. Rather than asking for a one-time reward, it was better to have a money tree that could make magic recovery pills for him in the long run. The last few battles had made him fully understand the importance of crystal cores in battle, especially in continuous battles, where he needed to quickly replenish his magic. Yao Qinshu had the urge to vomit blood. Looking at Jidong in front of him, he gritted his teeth in hatred, but there was nothing he could do. Jidong said, Now you can tell me where you want me to go with you. Yao Qinshu said dejectedly, Jidong, how about we make a deal? In the future, when I refine potions, you can help me start fire. With the help of your ultimate flame, the potions I refine will have their effects increased by at least 30%. It won't be impossible for me to refine 5th-grade potions. Jidong said straightforwardly, Sure, no need to pretend. This is your real goal. If I am not wrong, the reason you want me to admit that I am a holy disciple is also related to this. Yao Qinshu widened his eyes and said, How did you see the flaw? Jidong smiled faintly. Your medicine is not bad, and there are no flaws. I was just testing you. Who told you to admit it? Actually, when he saw Yao Qinshu take out the pill, he had some doubts in his heart. He tested him, and sure enough, It was very successful. At this moment, Ji Dong couldn't help but think of second brother Zhu, who gave him the twin brilliance of the sun and moon. He had promised second brother Zhu that he would refine magic weapons for him after his magic power increased to 3 crowns. Unfortunately, now that he had left the Heavenly STEM Academy, this promise could not be fulfilled, at least for the time being. The expression on Yao Qianshu's face became calm, and a faint smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He said, "Ji Dong, now I am more and more convinced of Tianji's words. It seems that you really are the holy king that leads our generation of holy disciples. Yes, I really hope that you can help me refine medicine in the future. The ultimate flame is very helpful in refining medicine. I can also promise you that as long as you provide the materials, I am willing to refine all kinds of magic potions for you for free. Other than the crystal core, I can also help you with the other ingredients. This should be considered a fair deal." Ji Dong nodded and said, "It should be considered fair. Since it is a fair deal, then the place you want to go to this time, the remuneration will be calculated separately." The smile on Yao Qianshu's face froze, and he said helplessly, "I really don't know if it is me who is desperate for money, or you who is desperate for money. All right, I promise you everything. We will split the gains from this expedition. Is that okay?" Ji Dong said, "That's fine. Also, you will pay for the travel expenses and all the supplies on the way. Tell me, where are we going?" Yao Qianshu mysteriously moved to Ji Dong's side and said in a low voice, "We are going to look for the treasure. After I was confirmed as a holy disciple, I went to Tianji's place to look for information about the previous holy disciples, and I accidentally found a treasure map. I asked Tianji, and he said that it might have been left behind by a generation of holy disciples 10,000 years ago. You should know that this generation of holy disciples can be said to be the strongest generation in the history of heavenly STEM holy disciples. Every holy disciple's magic power is as high as level 99, which is an existence close to God. Otherwise, they would not have been able to move the mountains and fill the seas to create the holy evil battlefield. If we can obtain a magic weapon left behind by them, it can even be equivalent to the exclusive godly equipment of us 10 holy disciples. Is that tempting enough?" This was the second time Ji Dong heard Yao Qianshu mention the word godly equipment. He said, "What is exclusive godly equipment?" Yao Qianshu said, "Every one of us holy disciples has our own exclusive godly equipment, which is also a magical item. With the help of the godly equipment, our strength will be greatly improved. These godly equipment were created by the first holy disciple after the first holy disciple sacrificed himself, and the second holy disciple used the crystal crown left behind by the first holy disciple to forge it. It can be said that it is the strongest godly equipment in the world. The crystal crown of the first holy disciple? Then it is the crystal crown of the light attribute. Why did I hear that it is impossible for magicians to use the same attribute crystal crown?" Ji Dong asked doubtfully. Yao Qianshu said, "What you said is that ordinary magicians cannot use it, as long as they have the ultimate magic power, even if they are not us holy disciples, but the top experts who have cultivated to the level of 9 crowns. They can also use the same attribute crystal crown. The ultimate magic power is not limited by the light and dark attributes. Of course, the exclusive godly equipment of the 10 holy disciples can only be worn by the corresponding holy disciples." Ji Dong said, "Then where is our godly equipment?" Yao Qianshu shook his head and said, "Tianji said that before the holy disciples pass away, they will seal the godly equipment and send it back to the holy evil battlefield, waiting for us to search for it there. This is also a test for us. At that time, we will not only have to find our own godly equipment, but also do our best to prevent the Dark Saints from finding theirs." Ji Dong nodded and said, "Let's talk about the place you want to go this time. Where is it roughly?" Yao Qianshu chuckled and said, "It's not far. It's just 300 miles north of Tianji City. I've been there twice. It's just that it's very difficult to go deep alone. But with you, it's different. That kind of place needs a powerful fire element devil like you." Ji Dong said impatiently, "You don't have to flatter me. Since we have decided to go, we should hurry. You were in charge of buying supplies and helped me buy a detailed map of the continent. Yao Qinshu said straightforwardly, "No problem. You see, there's an inn in front. You can stay there and rest. I will be back soon." Watching Yao Qinshu leave quickly, Ji Dong could not help but smile. This guy was really interesting. It could be seen that he also had a lot of secrets. Adventure? It was indeed a little interesting. This was also a way for him to travel around the continent. But he did not know what he could find in this adventure. Could he really find the so-called magic equipment left by the holy disciples of the first generation? It was very doubtful. What was the treasure that Yao Qinshu mentioned? What kind of sparks could be produced when the ultimate third fire and the ultimate first would collide? What would they find? Chapter 106. How much further? Jidong asked Yao Qinshu, who was beside him. The two of them had already left Tianji City for a whole day. They traveled during the day and trained at night. It was now early in the morning, and they were not far from their destination. Yao Qinshu said, "About another 30 miles. We need to enter the New Oding Forest. That place is in the misty swamp in the New Oding Forest. It is a very dangerous place." Jidong nodded. Through these few days of interaction, he found that Yao Qinshu was a very casual person. Apart from his love for money, he was very easygoing and easy to get along with. Jidong, seeing that you train at such a fixed time every day, your magic power should have increased again, right? Yao Qinshu said with a smile. Jidong said, "How can it be so easy? After accompanying you to find the treasure, I plan to train in isolation for a period of time in preparation for entering the holy evil battlefield in a year's time." Yao Qinshu said, "Of course, not just you, all of us need to train. After finding the treasure, I will bring you to find the others. We will be together, and the efficiency of training will be much higher. Relying on the 5 elements field, we can greatly increase the concentration of the elements within a certain range." The 5 elements field has such an effect? Jidong asked doubtfully. Yao Qinshu laughed. Of course, the 5 elements field, the 5-element combination skill has endless wonderful uses. The 10 great holy disciples each have an extreme magic power. Although they're already powerful magic masters, the real reason why they can intimidate the mainland and make those empires not dare to offend them is because we can rely on the mutual promotion and restraint of the 5 elements to unleash an extremely powerful ultimate skill. Even flattening a city is nothing. It's just that we holy disciples do not have enough power now. Wait until we all break through to the 6th crown, then it will be enough to make anyone tremble in fear. Jidong said, "Now that you mention this, I want to talk to you about the combination skill. During my time in the Yin-Yang school, I have not learned anything in this area." Yao Qinshu said, "That's easy. I can tell you everything I know. After all, we will have to work together often in the future. Generally speaking, there are 2 ways to release a combination skill. One is to superimpose a combination skill, and the other is to combine different attributes. Relatively speaking, superimpose a combination skill is easier to achieve, but can only increase the power of a single attribute through superimposition. Just like that Viscount Sure you met, although he released the combination skill through 2/3 fire element magic masters. In fact, he used the characteristics of fire to give birth to earth to strengthen his own 5th earth magic power. This belongs to the category of superimpose a combination skill. There is no coordination of magic power. It is just a special way of amplification. As for a true combination skill with different attributes, it is when magic masters of different attributes release their respective magic skills. The magic skills themselves produce a kind of fusion, combining 2 or more types of magic power characteristics into a powerful combination skill. That way, not only will the power increase greatly, but the multi-attribute attack will also be extremely difficult for the opponent to resist. There is an invisible mutual promotion and restraint. Let me give you a simple example to understand. For example, if you attack alone, then your fire attribute can only restrain the metal attribute and the wood attribute. At most, it can restrain these 2 attributes. However, if you and I complete a combination skill together, then our combination skill will be a dual attribute of fire and wood. Wood can restrain earth, and the metal attribute will restrain fire. In this way, Our combination skill can restrain water, wood, earth, metal, and fire at the same time. No matter what attribute the opponent uses, they will not be able to affect the performance of our attributes and will be restrained by us, unless the opponent also uses a combination skill. Otherwise, they will definitely be suppressed by us in terms of attributes. You and I are both ultimate attributes, so the power of the combination skill will be even more astonishing. Jidong said, "Then what do you mean? As long as I release a magic skill, you will also release a magic skill, and the two of us will work together to produce the effect of a combination skill." Yao Qinshu shook his head and said, "How can it be that simple? Think about it. There is a huge difference between the fire attribute and the wood attribute. To be more precise, there is a huge gap between the 5 elemental magic skills. If you want to complete a combination skill, you must find the magic skills that are most similar to each other in order to have a chance of success. It is not that easy to realize, and the easiest way to produce an effect is to use dual attributes of the same element. For example, your third fire and fourth fire are much easier to combine, but the power of the combination skill of different elements will be greater. For example, a combination skill of 3 elements will be stronger than a combination skill of 2 elements. The strongest aspect of us 10 great holy disciples is that we can perform the combination skill of 5 elements, and thus complete the powerful combination skill of 5 elements as one. Even if we are only at the level of 6 crowns, as long as 5 people of the same element are together, even if we encounter a top-notch master, we still have a chance." Jidong was shocked. "You mean the 5 elements of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth, which are all yang elements, or the 5 elements of yin elements, can perform the combination skill of 5 elements?" Yao Qinshu nodded solemnly. "This is the inherited ability of us heavenly stem holy disciples. The combination skill of the 5 elements of the same element must all be ultimate mana, and then be realized through a special method. Other than us heavenly stem holy disciples, no one else can do this." Jidong took a deep breath. He was really shocked this time. He had seen the power of the 5 elements field with his own eyes. If 5 masters with ultimate mana were to perform the combination skill of the 5 elements, how terrifying would the power be? He could not imagine it. Yao Qinshu smiled and said, "Just thinking about it makes me feel good, right? Now that we have found you, when we go into seclusion this time, we can also start trying to cultivate the combination skill of the 5 elements. Before this, we just lacked you, the crucial ultimate dual fire. It's just that when the dual fire appears on you at the same time, I don't know which side you'll be working with, yang or yin." Jidong said, "I'm really looking forward to it. I think there will be a solution. Now I just want to know if you have any magic skills that can work with me." Yao Qinshu said, "If it's just a superposition of the combination skill, it should be very simple for us to work together. I only need to inject my ultimate first wood magic into your body, and the power of your ultimate third fire will increase exponentially. As for the combination of different magic skills, I can't say for now. After all, although it gives birth to fire, your fire has a certain restraining effect on my wood. To complete the combination skill of the 3 elements, it's quite difficult in terms of technique. Generally speaking, the best combination skill is to be carried out by 2 attributes that do not have complementary effects, so that it can produce the greatest power. For example, fire and earth, wood and metal, water and metal. It's not impossible for us to complete the combination skill, but it's very difficult. Jidong, the reason why we heavenly stem holy disciples are often able to become masters in a much shorter time than ordinary magicians is also because of the combination skill of the 5 elements. Once the combination skill of the 5 elements is successfully cultivated, it can not only be used for attack and defense, but more importantly, it can assist in cultivation. Magic skills can be used for cultivation? Jidong was surprised again. Yao Qinshu nodded and said, "Yes, this is using the principle of the mutual generation of the 5 elements. 5 people of the same element. As long as they can achieve the 5 elements as one and mutually support each other, they will be able to train their fighting magic together. During cultivation, they will mutually support each other, and the cultivation speed will increase exponentially. This is also an important reason why we were so anxious to find you. Only by gathering the 10 great holy disciples can we carry out such cultivation. Jidong nodded and said, I understand. I will try my best to cooperate with you to achieve such an effect. He thought to himself, using the 5-element combination skill to cultivate, for him, this was a brand new understanding. If it could really greatly increase his cultivation speed, then wouldn't he be one step closer to being able to protect the flaming bar? The distance of 30 miles was not long for the two of them. In the distance, Jidong could already see the vast forest that Yao Qianshu spoke of. The New Oding Forest was located 300 miles north of the Tianji city. Jidong had entered the Midway Empire from the Southern Fire Empire. There was a clear difference between the forests in the south and the north. The forest in front of him was much smaller in comparison, and there were quite a few coniferous trees. This was obviously due to the temperature. The New Oding Forest appeared very tranquil and quiet. Looking from afar, the dense forest stretched as far as the eye could see. Yao Qianshu stopped at the edge of the forest and said, We have arrived at our destination. From now on, you must be very careful. The New Oding Forest itself is a forest of magical beasts. Although there are not many magical beasts here, most of them have a certain level of strength. Fourth and fifth order also exist. It is only because their numbers are small that they did not attract those magicians who hunt magical beasts for a living. Of course, the strength of the magical beasts is also an important reason. Jidong nodded and said, Let's go. How far into the forest is the place you mentioned? Yao Qianshu said, If we hurry a little, we should be able to reach it by noon. Let's go. The two of them did not rest and directly entered the forest. Yao Qianshu let Jidong follow him to apply. The advantages of a first wood magician were displayed at this time. Without a doubt, wood magicians were the strongest in the forest. A layer of faint green light emitted from Yao Qianshu's body, enveloping him and Jidong. Wood begets fire, and this layer of green light fell on Jidong's body, giving him a very comfortable feeling. The leaves seemed to be welcomed by the green light, quietly attaching themselves to Jidong and Yao Qianshu. Very soon, the two of them turned green. What was even more strange was that as Yao Qianshu moved forward in front of them, no matter if it was brambles, shrubs, or vines, they would all automatically separate, flashing out a path for the two of them to move forward. This undoubtedly greatly increased the speed of their advance. Even with Jidong's personality, he couldn't help but secretly praise in his heart. In terms of magical control, Yao Qianshu was even above him. At this moment, he only felt that he and Yao Qianshu had already completely blended into nature. Their own auras were completely concealed by that layer of green light and the plants. If one didn't look carefully, even if the distance was very close, it would be difficult to discover their existence. Entering the forest, Yao Qianshu's whole person seemed to have grown a bit taller. Jidong discovered that the surrounding plants seemed to quietly move with his breathing, and that layer of green light that Yao Qianshu released also didn't seem to consume any of his magical power. Along the way, they also encountered several magical beasts, but under the effect of Yao Qianshu's miraculous camouflage spell, they simply didn't attract the attention of the magical beasts and easily went deep into the New Oding Forest. How is it? My camouflage spell is not bad, right? Yao Qianshu occasionally turned his head, somewhat proudly saying to Hioheim. Jidong nodded, saying, Indeed not bad. No magical beast can discover you. Yao Qianshu nodded, saying, As long as we are in the forest, as the first would holy disciple, I have the ability to make magical beasts below the 10th level unable to discover us. If the second would holy disciple is also here, with the two of us working together, even a 10th level magical beast will not be able to discover our existence in the forest. Every element has its own characteristics. The forest, undoubtedly, is the world of our wood element. Yao Qianshu's judgment of time was very accurate. When it was just right, they were already deep into the heart of the New Oding Forest. Far away, Jidong could already see a layer of hazy fog in front of them blown by the breeze. The fog in the forest made it very difficult to distinguish the direction. Almost there. Yao Qinshu stopped, raising his right hand. A green light shot out from his hand, falling on a small vine. That vine suddenly lit up, becoming as transparent as jade. Under the astonished gaze of Jidong, it seemed to have a life of its own, like a green little snake slithering forward, breaking free from the main body of the vine, coming in front of Yao Qinshu. Yao Qinshu's eyes flashed with green light, and another extreme firstwood magic was injected. That jade-like thin vine twisted a bit, turning to move forward. Jidong, follow me. In this fog, it is very easy to get lost. The average person does not dare to easily try to enter. Once lost, it is very difficult to get out again. I don't know how many people, because of going deep into this fog, and finally lost their way in the swamp and died. I think this may also be one of the treasure's protection. I will use the magic to guide the way. It will lead us into the fog swamp. Jidong nodded, took a step forward, and followed closely behind Yao Qinshu. Yao Qinshu pointed with his finger. That green vine had already moved, slithering forward. Yao Qinshu brought Jidong to follow behind, and the two entered the fog. Almost in the blink of an eye, the surroundings had already turned into a sheet of white. One could not see their fingers in front of them. Even Yao Qinshu, who was right in front of them, was difficult for Jidong to see clearly. His waist tightened. A vine had already wrapped around Jidong's body. He was just about to react when Yao Qinshu's voice came. "It's me. This way we won't get lost." Chapter 107. Jidong shook the vine, indicating that he understood. Yao Qinshu continued to move forward. Jidong felt that he had walked for about half an hour, and Yao Qinshu's footsteps stopped. A cyan light flashed, and the guiding vine, which was injected with the ultimate firstwood magic, jumped into Yao Qinshu's hands. Under the cyan magic, Jidong saw his partner in front of him. "Brother, the next step depends on your ability. We have come to the edge of the fog swamp, and the guiding vine can no longer guide us. I have come here twice. The first time I came, I stopped outside the swamp and did not go deep into it. The second time I came, I made some preparations, but when I went deep, I did not find the goal. I encountered danger and had to retreat. Fortunately, I was well prepared, so I was able to retreat. This fog is too annoying. I can't see everything around me at all. After entering the swamp, the guiding vine can't be used because there are no plants in the swamp and it can't guide us through the senses of the plants. Therefore, we must now dispel the fog in order to move forward. The fog is born of water vapor. As long as you can temporarily dispel it and let us see the way ahead, we can enter." Jidong nodded. He had understood Yao Qinshu's meaning. With a flash of light, the red third fire had burned from his right hand, but he suddenly found that it was not easy to use the fire magic skills here. The air was full of water elements everywhere, and the fire elements were pitiful. It was extremely difficult to strengthen oneself with the help of the external fire elements. One could only rely on their own magic to burn. Although it was difficult to absorb the fire elements, the effect of the flame blooming was obvious. The thick white mist in the air quickly flew away in the burning red third fire. In the blink of an eye, Jidong and Yao Qinshu could see each other clearly. Yao Qinshu passed a cyan pill to Jidong. "The miasma here is very heavy and poisonous. Although your innate attribute is fire and you have a strong resistance to poison, it's still better to eat one of my miasma resistance pills. If I were to sell this thing, I would sell it for 10 gold coins per stock." Jidong was a little amused. He swallowed the pill and said, "Is everything in your eyes can be measured by money?" Not all of them, but it was more or less the same. Money was good. What could be more direct than money? "Jidong, your third fire doesn't seem to be enough. The visibility around us was 3 meters at the most. It's better to use third fire. The effect will be much better." Jidong glanced at him and said, "Will you provide the medicine to replenish magic power?" As he spoke, he flicked his wrist, and a vermilion bird bracelet with a golden red phoenix pattern flashed, and a bottle of liquor appeared in his hand. Opening the cork, a rich aroma of wine assailed his nostrils. Jidong took a big mouthful, then brought the burning Bing fire in his right hand to his face. Puff! With the magic power in his body, he spat out the mouthful of wine. Accompanied by a strong wine aroma, Yao Qianshu was startled. A huge fireball suddenly flew out in front of him, and wherever it passed, the fog was pushed away. Jidong's strength was extremely strong. This mouthful of wine was sprayed out for a full 20 meters. In front of the two, a clear passage of 20 meters naturally appeared, and even the fog on both sides had dissipated a lot. Yao Qianshu opened his mouth in surprise and said, "Is this also possible?" Jidong said, "The high alcohol content itself has a sterilizing effect. Although the water vapor here is strong, it can't affect the burning of the wine. Using the wine to open the way can save a lot of magic power." As the passage formed by the burning of the wine appeared, Jidong could clearly see that the ground in front of him was a damp swamp. It looked like the ground was gray, but the mud bubbles that occasionally rose showed that it was extremely difficult to walk on this kind of ground. Yao Qianshu and Hyoheim stretched out their thumbs and pulled their right hand behind them. This time, it was directly the output of the first wood magic. A rich emerald brilliance spread out, and the sound of rustling quickly sounded from the feet of the two people. They saw a large piece of vines extending into the swamp in rapid growth. In the blink of an eye, it was spread into a 3-meter wide and long path that reached the place where Jidong's wine fire was spat out. With a large area of the vines, it was naturally no longer a problem to move forward. Doing this, Yao Qianshu seemed very relaxed. Hyoheim made a gesture, and the two stepped on the vines at the same time and marched into the swamp. Although Yao Qianshu's guiding vine, which had been injected with magic, could no longer lead the way for them, this thing could still help them identify the direction and became an important tool for going deep into the fog swamp. As long as Yao Qianshu continued to inject his extreme first wood magic with huge vitality into it, the vines under the feet of the two would continue to extend forward. The mist that had been dispersed by the wine flame once again filled the air. When the two of them entered the depths of the swamp, the mist behind them was already thick and heavy. Jidong was very calm, not worried about this situation at all. He still had many tricks up his sleeves. The reason why he used the wine flame was mainly to conserve his mana. Even Yao Qianshu did not know what kind of dangers they would encounter in the depths of the misty swamp. Preserving as much mana as possible was undoubtedly the best way to protect himself. Poof! Another wine fire was spat out, and the thick fog was swung away in large quantities. First wood and third fire, the two of them spat wine fire, and the other used vines to pave the way. Although the speed of their advance was not fast, it was extremely solid, with the vines paving the way under their feet as a guarantee. Even if they really encountered any problems, they had a way to retreat. The magic of the dual system had begun to show at this time. This was an important reason why Yao Qianshu strongly invited Jidong to come with him for treasure hunting. Moving forward into the depths of the fog swamp, the two had also penetrated hundreds of meters into the fog swamp. Yao Qianshu said, "According to the map, after entering the fog swamp about a kilometer, we should be able to reach the real island inside the swamp." As he spoke, he took a magic pill to restore his own first wood magic. He used the first wood magic to urge the vines under his feet, and the consumption was much greater than that of Jidong. Although there was still a lot of magic left at this time, he also had to keep himself in the best state for treasure hunting so that he could adapt at any time. Just when Jidong had just taken out the second bottle of Legio, suddenly, both of them smelled a fishy smell at the same time. Yao Qianshu shouted, "Be careful." His whole body shone, and the vines under his feet moved wildly and rhythmically. Almost in an instant, they expanded geometrically, turning into a thick, giant wood, and instantly protected the two people's bodies. Using a soft wood-like vines was originally a specialty of the second wood system. Yao Qianshu relied on his extreme first wood vitality to make the vines grow and did not use the actual combat ability of the vines. At this time, the vines were affected by his extreme first wood magic and instantly turned into giant wood. This was the real means of the first wood system. There was a loud bang, and Ji Dong felt the wall that Yao Qianshu had created shake violently. A huge force slammed into the wooden wall, and it was on the verge of collapsing. It was as if something huge was rising up beside them. At this time, Ji Dong showed his strength. He raised his hands at the same time, and the yin-yang vortex instantly accelerated, like a supercharged turbine, and his own extreme third fire broke out in an instant. The golden-red flame suddenly bloomed, with his body as the heart. In addition to flashing past Yao Qianshu, it burst out in all directions at the same time. Ordinary third fire could only expel water vapor, but when this third Wu primordial yang sacred fire came out, suddenly, the water vapor in the air was swept away, and all the fog within a diameter of 30 meters was instantly cleared. At the same time, the wooden wall, which was driven by the extreme firstwood magic, also burned fiercely under the third Wu primordial yang sacred fire, turning into a huge firewall to protect the two people. At this time, they also saw the thing that attacked them at the same time. It was an extremely huge snake. It drilled out of the swamp. The part of its body exposed outside the swamp was 6 or 7 meters long and had the thickness of a water tank. There were no sharp teeth in the huge snake's mouth, but when the snake opened its mouth, it was enough to swallow adult cattle and sheep. "Is it the forest boa?" Ji Dong shouted. The forest anaconda was the largest snake. It also existed in his previous world, but the forest anaconda in front of him was obviously much larger than the one in his memory. Moreover, there was a faint layer of bluish-purple light on the surface of the snake's skin. It was obviously a magical beast, but he couldn't tell what level it was. Rank 5 magical beast, not good. This fog swamp is probably the nest of the forest boa. The forest boa has always lived in groups. Generally, it is a rank 4 magical beast. This rank 5 should be the king of the forest boa. We are in big trouble. In the face of danger, Yao Qianshu also behaved extremely calmly and said everything he knew in the first place. The two looked at each other, and Ji Dong shouted, "Help me." As he spoke, he stepped forward and stood in front of them. At the same time, he swallowed a magic pill. The Xingwu primordial yang, sacred fire, suddenly retracted and condensed on his right arm. Yao Qianshu understood and stepped behind Ji Dong, pressing his palms on his back at the same time. Under the effect of the extreme firstwood magic, although Ji Dong's body was full of the aura of the Xingwu primordial yang sacred fire, it still couldn't hurt him for the time being. The surging vitality poured into his body like a spring. Ji Dong only felt that his yin and yang vortex seemed to be ignited at this moment, and his magic increased exponentially. The white sun crown above his head burst into an extremely dazzling brilliance, and the magic in his body seemed to be inexhaustible. On his right fist, the Xingwu primordial yang sacred fire rose to a height of 3 meters, and even the rank 7 Xingwu fire crystal crown on the glove of the twin brilliance of the sun and moon was burning golden. For the first time, Ji Dong really experienced the amplification effect of wood to fire, and he was really shocked. He clearly felt that the magic he had at this moment was definitely comparable to the magic he had after casting the Vermilion Bird transformation and cooperating with Little Flame. Yao Qianshu had 4 crowns, and the extreme first wood of the 4 crowns was used as fuel for the extreme third fire of the 3 crowns. The magic of the two rose and erupted, and the extreme effect was displayed. The Xingwu primordial yang, sacred fire burning on Ji Dong's head, was infinitely close to 6 crowns. The huge forest boa king was frightened when the Xingwu primordial yang, sacred fire burst out in an instant. Water restrained fire, but whoever encountered the Xingwu primordial yang sacred fire would also be burned. From Ji Dong's body, it clearly felt the aura of its natural enemy, and coupled with the burning wall of fire, it did not dare to rush directly. At this time, it could be clearly seen that just where Ji Dong and Yao Qianshu were, within a diameter of 30 meters, at least dozens of forest boa kings drilled out of the swamp and firmly surrounded them. The thick fishy smell mixed with the unique rotten smell of the swamp was nauseating. Only within the burning range of the Xingwu primordial yang, sacred fire, The air became extremely clean. Taking a deep breath, Ji Dong's entire chest swelled up, and the Xingwu primordial yang sacred fire on his right hand burned even more fiercely. Behind him, in Yao, Qianshu, the proud figure of the flame monarch appeared incomparably solid. Accompanied by the aura of the flame monarch, a large area of fog that had been swept away was further pushed away. As one of the two great monarchs of the underground world, the flame monarch controlled the extreme third fire. In terms of strength, he surpassed the third fire mythological beast, the vermilion bird, because he was a king that belonged to a completely different world. Under his aura, how could this fog that was full of water vapor still exist? The surrounding scenery became clearer, and more forest boa kings fell into the eyes of Ji Dong and Yao Qianshu. At the same time, they could also see further away. A loud and long roar rang out from Ji Dong's mouth. His right hand, that was burning with dazzling golden flames, was raised high above his head. The terrifying and blazing flame monarch completely burst forth from his body, and the surrounding air was completely distorted. Even Yao Qianshu, who was buffing him, was somewhat unable to bear it. His whole body was covered with a layer of emerald luster, but even so, the magic on his body was still fluctuating and weakening. Although a large number of forest boa kings surrounded them, but feeling the domineering might of the Xingwu primordial yang sacred fire, not a single forest boa dared to attack here. Yao Qianshu did not have to wait long for Ji Dong's accumulated power. Just when Yao Qianshu was about to be unable to bear it, Ji Dong suddenly stomped his feet on the vines, and with the strong rebound of the vines, his whole body broke away from Yao Qianshu's buffing and soared into the sky. The dazzling golden-red flames spread from his right fist to his whole body in an instant, and his whole body seemed to have become a completely golden-red existence. Ao and's flame monarch flew up quickly, and in midair, it fused with Ji Dong's body. All Yao Qianshu could see was that dazzling gold. At this moment, although there were so many forest boa kings surrounding them, and they were all powerful magical beasts that were at least at the 4th grade, there was only one focus in the foggy swamp. Forbidden 100,000 brilliant sun all. Ji Dong did not launch an attack at the forest boa kings. In the instant that the endless Xingwu primordial yang sacred fire completely erupted, his whole body had already turned into a huge golden red all, falling from the sky, and his target was actually the swamp under his and Yao Qianshu's feet. Chapter 108. The glaring golden flames struck the swamp in an instant, and a strong golden red light burst forth instantly. Yao Qianshu leaped high at the first instance, trying his best to avoid the terrifying, overbearing, and crazy explosive power of the fire attribute displayed by the ultimate third fire. The passage he had previously made with vines had been completely broken at this moment, turning into flying ash and disappearing. What was even more frightening was yet to come. Accompanied by the Flame Monarch's sure-kill technique, the golden, brilliant sun all bombarded the swamp. A layer of intense golden light spread out with the brilliant sun all as the center. The huge golden light extended outwards at an unparalleled speed, like a huge golden halo unfolding. The forest anacondas were frantically restless, but although they realized that something was wrong, they were still a beat too slow. They had huge bodies, but how could their speed compare to the instantaneous explosion of the sun cone nail? Leaping into the air, Yao Qianshu's pupils contracted, and he could not help but shout, "Good!" At this moment, within the scope of the eyes, the swamp was covered with a layer of glaring golden light. Every forest anaconda that was touched by the golden light felt dizzy in an instant. The scorching heat of the third Wu primordial yang sacred fire had forcibly suppressed their own water attribute magic. It was also at this time that the originally muddy, damp, dark, and unknown depth of the swamp underwent a strange change. Every forest anaconda could move freely in the swamp, but now they suddenly found that their bodies could not move. The part of their bodies that was still in the swamp could not move at all and were firmly locked in. With the Flame Monarch's ultimate skill, the sun cone nail, bombarding the ground, Jidong certainly would not shoot without aim. His goal had been achieved. With the powerful magic skill and the terrifying explosive power of the ultimate Yang fire, he had evaporated the water in the swamp in an instant. What did the swamp that had lost its water become? It turned into hard soil, and even some of the soil with special components was directly burned into enamel by the high temperature of the ultimate Yang fire. The soft swamp had become hard ground. Most of the anacondas were in the swamp. At this moment, they had been completely locked and could not move at all. The strong pressure from the ground and the scorching heat of the third Wu primordial Yang sacred flame were madly draining their vitality. Perhaps it was not enough to kill them instantly, but how could they survive after losing the ability to move? It wouldn't take long for them to die. Jidong's body was trembling slightly. He had used up a large amount of magic power, and his face was pale. However, he had borrowed a large amount of Yao Qianshu's magic power to launch this brilliant sun all. Although it was the first time the two of them worked together, there was no doubt that this ultimate combination of wood and fire elements was executed flawlessly. Although the dozens or even hundreds of anacondas in front of them were struggling violently, they could no longer pose any threat to the two of them. Only you can think of that. Yao Qianshu landed beside Jidong, and the two of them ate a magic power recovery pill at the same time. Yao Qianshu stretched out his hands at the same time, and Hyoheim gave a thumbs up. Jidong chuckled. He had also thought of this method in an instant. Otherwise, even if he and Yao Qianshu had good strength and had magic power recovery pills and crystal cores as supplements, it was almost impossible to defeat these anacondas in this swamp. If it was just Jidong alone, he could completely use the vermilion bird transformation to fly away. But with Yao Qianshu, he was not sure that he could fly with others. The two looked at each other and could not help but feel a little closer to each other. For the first time, he felt the powerful power of the combination skill. Jidong could not help but be very excited. What feeds fire? With Yao Qianshu, his strength could be said to increase exponentially. At the same time, it also made him more curious about the multi-person combination skill. Jidong said while panting, "Although the anacondas are powerful, they can't fight against the earth. It won't be long before they die of hunger without attack. Let's take a break and restore magic power before continuing." Yao Qianshu nodded and said, "This is good. I'm afraid that half of the fog in the fog forest was broken by your blow just now. Although I can also use a killing skill, compared to your killing skill, the power is much worse. I really can't imagine how you did it." Jidong said, "My brilliant sun, all should actually be used by the level of 5 crowns. Every time I use it, I need some special method to temporarily increase my own magic power. With the help of your extreme first wood, it is much easier to use." Yao Qianshu said, "It's the vermilion bird, right? I still remember when you used this trick at Viscount Sher's mansion. It was slightly different from just now. Have you already obtained the approval of the fire divine beast, the vermilion bird?" Jidong looked at him and did not hide it. He said, "You only guessed half right. Although I have obtained the approval of the vermilion bird, my partner is not the vermilion bird. When you need it, you will naturally see it." After a short rest, the journey was much smoother. They had already penetrated halfway into the swamp. Those forest anacondas also waited for them to come to the center of the swamp before they started to attack. After the bombardment of Jidong's brilliant sun all, the swamp became solid. They bypassed the locked forest anacondas and walked for 200 meters before they saw the appearance of the swamp again. It could be seen how powerful the power of Jidong's brilliant sun all was. Even if they encountered the swamp again, the water was obviously reduced. The fog in the air reappeared, but it was much thinner than before. The scenery within a few dozen meters could still be seen. The advantage of the extreme attributes was shown at that moment. If it were two magicians, even if their magic power was higher than Jidong and Yao Qianshu, they would not be able to reach here. Yao Qianshu unfolded the map and looked at it. He pointed to the front and said, "Yes, it's over there. The swamp should be less than 200 meters away. It's going to be expensive again." As he spoke, he patted his waist with a bitter face. Jidong had long noticed that his belt was mysterious. It should be a storage magic tool. There was a flash of light, and a scroll appeared in Yao Qinshu's hand. The scroll was simple and unadorned, with cyan patterns on it, but it was not very complicated. Compared to the omnidirectional amorphous teleportation scroll that Jidong had seen before, the aura it emitted was much weaker. But even so, when Jidong saw Yao Qinshu take out a magic skill scroll, he could not help but be secretly surprised. This money-hungry guy really had a lot of good things on him. Yao Qinshu opened the scroll and unfolded it in the wind. Suddenly, a cyan light flashed and sank into the ground in front of them. Then, a green sapling slowly drilled out of the swamp and quickly grew up. Yao Qinshu said, "This is a grade 2 scroll of the first wood series. It's worth a lot of money. It's called wood-making technique." After a while, the small sapling had grown quickly and turned into a towering tree. Yao Qinshu once again released his extreme first wood magic, and the branches quickly grew and extended, going into the swamp, so that they had a place to stay. At this time, there was no need to remove the fog. Jidong restored his own magic and adjusted his physical state, while following Yao Qinshu through the last section of the swamp that was still relatively calm. With their feet on the ground, both of them felt a sense of relief. Although it took them less than an hour to pass through the swamp, this hour brought them quite a thrilling feeling. The hundreds of forest anacondas were not a joke. If they were not careful, they would be buried in them. Even if a 6-crown magician came here and could not see anything in the fog, they would not dare to go deep. They were indeed able to pass through the swamp because of the great role of the ultimate magic. Yao Qinshu took out some dry rations and water bags and handed them to Jidong, saying, "Let's eat something first, then we'll continue." From the early morning until now, they had not rested much. Jidong's previous attack not only consumed magic, but also physical strength. They had already passed through the swamp, but they had not yet entered the real treasure location. It was very necessary to adjust their state. Yao Qinshu spread the treasure map on the ground, saying, "It seems that this treasure is not so easy to find. There are forest anacondas in the fog swamp, and we are about to enter the treasure location. I don't know what dangers we will encounter. Jidong, do you want to continue?" "Of course, since we are already here, let's explore to the end. You don't need to test me. I promised you, and I will definitely do it." Yao Qinshu pointed at the treasure map, saying, "We have now arrived at the real center of Nuoding Forest, which is also the center of the fog swamp. This piece of land is also a forest, and according to the treasure map, we are already very close to the treasure entrance. After entering, we must feel our way forward, and we must be very careful." Jidong looked at Yao Qinshu with a somewhat strange gaze, saying, "Don't tell me that this treasure map of yours ends at the entrance?" Yao Qinshu said somewhat awkwardly, "It is like this, but I reckon that after entering the treasure location, there should not be any danger." Looking at him, Jidong could not help but be speechless. He shook his head, saying, "Money tree, let me give you 4 words. People die for wealth." Yao Qinshu laughed, saying, "Since we are already here, let's go take a look. If it is really dangerous, then we will retreat. Then let's go." Since they were already here, they should take things as they come. Jidong naturally would not leave just like that. From the time when Yun Tianji had told him about Yao Qinshu, he knew that although this guy in front of him was greedy, he was not stingy. Otherwise, he would not have distributed the money he earned to the commoners. He seemed to just enjoy the process of earning money. In the middle of the fog swamp was still a dense forest. Although the heavy fog had already recovered, as long as there was a forest, for Yao Qinshu, the fog would not be an obstacle. Under the guidance of the guiding vines, the two continued to go deeper. As Jidong moved forward, he sensed the movements in the surroundings. In the swamp, he had encountered the forest boa, who could guarantee that in this core area, he would not encounter even more powerful magical beasts. After walking for about 700 or 800 meters, Yao Qinshu stopped and said, "It should be around here. Jidong, help me." This time, Jidong directly ignited his own Binggu primordial yang, sacred fire. The blazing golden flame lit up, and a large area of fog swayed away, revealing the true color of the forest. Although the forest here was dense, the branches and leaves were relatively small. It might be related to the sunlight that could not pass through the fog and shine on the plants. It was surrounded by dense forests, and there was nothing unusual. Yao Qianshu's expression became extremely serious. Jidong had to admit that when this guy was serious, he was quite handsome. While comparing the treasure map, he constantly injected a stream of extreme firstwood magic into the surrounding trees. It seemed that he was communicating with these plants. Jidong couldn't help but secretly admire. Every magician had their own domain. Searching for treasures in this forest, even if he was given a treasure map, he was afraid that he would not be able to find it. It didn't take long for Yao Qianshu's face to show a hint of joy. He quickly walked inside with Jidong, first 20 meters forward, then 30 meters to the side, and a towering ancient tree appeared in front of the two of them. Compared to the surrounding trees, this tree was exceptionally huge. It would take at least 10 people to wrap their arms around it. What was even more surprising was that the other trees did not have luxuriant branches and leaves, but this tree had an extremely dense canopy. The branches and leaves were luxuriant, and every leaf was green and translucent. Just by looking at it, it gave off a feeling of vitality. Jidong's hands were burning with the Bingwu primordial yang sacred fire, which had been dispelling the fog. When he came to the big tree, he found that the fog here seemed to be particularly thick. It's here. This 10,000-year-old tree is the culprit of the fog. All the fog is produced by it. Yao Qianshu said excitedly. Jidong said in surprise, "Trees can produce fog?" Yao Qianshu smiled at him and said, "The world of plants is full of strange things, and nothing is impossible. This bewitching tree is an ancient species, and I'm afraid it's the only one in the entire continent. I can feel its deep and distant aura. The entrance to the treasure location is here. My treasure map was found in the Firstwood Saint's information from Tianji. The last hint of this treasure map is that only the Firstwood Devil power can open the entrance. This 10,000-year-old tree is extremely magical. Not only can it constantly produce a huge amount of fog, but its body is also as hard as fine gold. Step back a little. I'll try to open the door." Jidong took a few steps back and released his yin-yang crown at the same time. This time, he released his ultimate dual fire at the same time. The closer it was to the final moment, the more careful he had to be. God knew what would happen after the door that Yao Qianshu spoke of opened. From the fact that this guy dared to come here with only the treasure map outside, Jidong felt that he was very unreliable. Chapter 109. Yao Qianshu came to the 10,000-year-old bewitching tree, raised his right hand, and pressed it on the huge trunk of the bewitching tree. An emerald-like luster diffused from his body. A white sun crown quietly appeared, and the 4 crown peaks had cyan leaf imprints. A crown star shone, and the emerald-like luster quickly spread to every part of his body. The rich aura of life filled the surrounding air with vitality. After taking a few deep breaths, Jidong could feel that his spirit was much better, and the mana in his body became more active. The emerald-like luster poured into the 10,000-year-old bewitching tree along Yao Qianshu's right hand. The luster that belonged to the ultimate first would slowly seep into the trunk, and the mana fluctuations became more and more intense. A large amount of mist rushed out of the 10,000-year-old bewitching tree, and it seemed to be affected by the huge vitality of the ultimate first wood mana. The entire 10,000-year-old bewitching tree gave off a feeling of stretching. Gradually, the emerald-like luster spread from the trunk to every branch. A layer of cyan luster was released instead of the mist, and everything around it was reflected in cyan. The thick trunk of the 10,000-year bewitching tree twisted a little. In the middle of the trunk, a jade-green light shone. The light was as thick as a fist. It shone down and landed not far from Jidong, forming a jade-green door. Yao Qianshu retracted his hand, and his expression became a little tired. He said, "Go in quickly, it won't last long." As he said that, He took the lead and stepped into the green door of light. The door of light clearly looked illusory, but with just a step into the void, he had already disappeared. It was the first time that Ji Dong had seen such a strange scene, and he hurriedly followed and stepped into the green light door. Wrapped in a huge vitality, Ji Dong felt that every pore on his body seemed to have opened up, greedily absorbing the surging vitality around him. The yin-yang vortex in his body also seemed to be nourished, and his mana was stirred. It was obvious that it had strengthened a little, and he was one step closer to breaking through to the next level. This was teleportation. This was a teleportation. When Ji Dong stepped into the door of light, he understood that the 10,000-year-old bewitching tree was just where the door was opened. Although he did not know how this door was formed, he felt as though he was being teleported. With the experience of being teleported to the Earth's core to face the raging flames, he did not panic. Instead, he quietly sensed the benefits that the massive life force brought him. With a flash of cyan light, Ji Dong's spirit returned to its peak state. He landed on the ground, but it was dark around him. Only the sound of breathing could be heard. The red fire lit up, and the breathing sound belonged to the firstwood saint disciple, Yao Qianshu. At this moment, he was sitting on the ground in exhaustion, gasping for breath. He had almost used up his mana to open the teleportation door. This is amazing, to actually carve the teleportation formation on the 10,000-year-old bewitching tree. I can't believe this senior could think of this. Although tired, Yao Qianshu could not hide the excitement in his eyes. Ji Dong was not as optimistic as him, and said lightly, "I just want to know how we should go back now." Yao Qianshu was stunned, and hurriedly stood up to look around. Only then did he see that he and Ji Dong were in a wide tunnel. Ji Dong's third fire lit up the area within a dozen meters around them. There were walls behind and on both sides of them. This tunnel was straight ahead, and they did not know where it led to, but they were sure that there was definitely no teleportation formation that could take them back. "No way, we can only go in but not out." Yao Qianshu blinked and used his hand to knock on the surrounding walls. Only a solid sound responded to him. He did not know how thick the walls were, and he did not know where they were. He looked at Hyoheim awkwardly, coughed, and said, "It seems that we have no other choice." Ji Dong did not blame him. They were already here. What was the use of blaming? "Let's go." As he spoke, he took the lead and walked forward. The surroundings of this passageway were completely made of huge rocks, but they were extremely neat and smooth to the touch. What surprised Ji Dong the most was that in this supposedly impenetrable pitch-black passageway, it was not difficult to breathe, and the air was relatively fresh. This was also the reason why he was not too worried. Where there was air, there would naturally be a way out. At this time, it was Yao Qianshu's turn to follow Ji Dong. He put one hand on Ji Dong's shoulder, and while restoring his own magic with magic recovery pills, he was ready to inject his extreme firstwood magic into Ji Dong at any time, so as to assist him in bursting out powerful magic. He was also very confident in Ji Dong's brilliant sun cone. The tunnel was dark, but it was not too long. It only moved forward for more than 100 meters, and there was a change. A huge door appeared in front of the two. The stone door was square and blocked the entire tunnel. Seeing the stone door, whether it was Ji Dong or Yao Qianshu, they couldn't help but admire it. The tunnel was about 3 meters high, and the stone door was the same height. It was opposite, and the two stone doors were carved with the 5 elements of the Yang attribute and the Yin attribute. Put together, it was exactly the 10 elements of the heavenly stems. The carvings on the stone door were completely different from those Ji Dong had seen before. They were extremely exquisite, and the carving skills were exquisite. Standing in front of the stone door, Ji Dong said, "There is fresh air in this tunnel, and the vent should be at the top of the tunnel. Otherwise, the two ends are blocked. I don't know how many years of turbid air have passed, and it is enough to kill us." Yao Qianshu stood next to Ji Dong and pushed the stone door in front of him. The stone door did not move at all. He smiled bitterly and said, "It seems that this place should have been built by the Earth Saint. It is probably underground or in the mountains. This stone door should not be pushed by manpower, at least we can't." Ji Dong nodded and said, "You try to inject magic. Yao Qianshu put his hands on the stone door, and the emerald light appeared again. When his extreme firstwood magic was injected into the stone door, a strange scene suddenly appeared. On the stone door, the azure dragon, which symbolized the firstwood element totem, flashed instantly, exuding the same emerald brilliance as Yao Qianshu. The exquisitely carved azure dragon was lifelike, and the thick firstwood element suddenly filled the entire tunnel. "Welcome, Firstwood Saint." A melodious and cool voice sounded from all directions. This sudden voice suddenly startled Yao Qianshu, and he hurriedly jumped back a step. At this moment, the entire tunnel lit up and turned into a dazzling emerald color. It looked like it was repaired with emerald. 4 crowns of magic, extreme firstwood Saint Yao Qianshu. Now, please answer the question. If the answer is correct, you can enter the underground palace. Extreme Firstwood is the source of life. Please use your own magic to trigger the Azure Dragon totem and inject it into the Azure Dragon carving on the wall. Your question will appear. Yao Qianshu and Jidong looked at each other, and Jidong nodded to him. The white Firstwood sun crown appeared, and the emerald luster suddenly became extremely rich. After the level of 3 crowns, one could trigger the appearance of the totem corresponding to their own magic. The emerald azure dragon that appeared behind Yao Qianshu was even more dazzling. Under his delicate control, the emerald azure dragon flew up and directly injected into the azure dragon carving on the stone door. In an instant, the emerald light converged, and a green light shone from the azure dragon stone carving. An illusory light and shadow appeared in front of Jidong and Yao Qianshu. That melodious voice sounded again. Your first question is the connection between wood and the other 4 attributes of the 5 elements. You have to say 3 kinds of connection with each attribute. This is a principle that Firstwood Saint must understand. Wood belongs to the connection of the 5 elements and is the most peaceful. Through the connection of wood, the 5 elements can be harmonious. Begin. That green light instantly enveloped Yao Qianshu's body. Vaguely, Yao Qianshu's entire body seemed to be illuminated by that green light until it became transparent. After a moment of silence, Yao Qianshu said in a clear voice, "When the earth is prosperous, it can be dredged. When the wood is prosperous, it can become a pillar. Wood depends on wood to grow, and the more wood there is, the more wood there is. Water can give birth to wood, and the more wood there is, the more wood there is. Water can give birth to wood, and the more wood there is, the more wood there is. Wood can restrain the earth, and the wood in the earth will be broken. When the earth is weak, it will collapse. When the wood is weak, it will be chopped. When the water is strong, it will release its power. When the wood is strong, it will be changed." Correct answer. Only by defeating oneself can one become a true saint. Enter the second question, the battle of surpassing oneself. The green light shone brightly, and with a flash, Yao Qianshu's body disappeared into thin air, as if he'd been sucked into the green dragon statue. The entire passageway also dimmed. Yao Qianshu had disappeared, but Jidong had encountered a problem. It was obvious that this underground palace that the strange voice spoke of was indeed built by a former saint, but to truly enter it, he had to display his abilities as a saint. This was Jidong's biggest problem. He indeed possessed the ultimate dual fire, but when he used the ultimate dual fire, what he displayed was not the vermilion bird or the flying serpent totem, but the flame tyrant and the dark flame devil king, the 2 great kings of the underground world. In that case, could he obtain the recognition of this place? What was that strange voice? He did not know. Could it be that there was someone presiding over the underground palace? Or was it a voice left behind by magic? However, no matter what, he had to try. Otherwise, he was afraid that he could only be trapped here until he died. After thinking for a moment, Jidong's decisive character made him make a choice. He took a deep breath, stood in front of the stone door, and pressed both hands on the stone door. Since there was no way out, he had to face the difficulties head-on and not retreat and wait bitterly. 2 colored flames, gold and black, rose from Jidong's palms at the same time. Ultimate dual fire and ultimate fire bloomed at the same time, turning into two rays of light brazenly injected into the stone door. A situation similar to what Yao Qianshu had encountered previously appeared, but this time it was two totem statues that lit up at the same time. The vermilion bird that symbolized the third fire and the flying serpent that symbolized the fourth fire lit up with gold and black halos, respectively. The golden vermilion bird seemed to spread its wings and fly, while the black flying serpent also seemed to be twisting slightly. Welcome, third fire saint, fourth fire saint. A melodious and clear voice sounded from all directions, and the entire tunnel lit up. There was another change. Gold and black became the main melody in the tunnel, and the surging magic filled every corner. Feeling such a change, Jidong could not help but gasp. According to the situation in front of him, no matter which type of magic was injected, it would be triggered. Then, in this door or in this tunnel, there was a huge amount of magic of 10 types. If the treasure map was left behind 10,000 years ago, then it was not only ventilated, but there was also no trace of dust, and it could also store such a huge amount of magic. How magical was this? 3 crowns of magic, ultimate third fire, ultimate fire, third fire saint, and fourth fire saint. Now, please answer the question. If the answer is correct, you can enter the underground palace. Ultimate third fire is the fire of selflessness, illuminating all things. Ultimate fourth fire is the fire of candles, furnace fire, lights of thousands of homes, fireworks of the world, and the fire of stars. Third fire illuminates all things, and fourth fire illuminates one side. Please use your own magic to guide your respective totems and inject them into the corresponding totem carvings on the stone door, and your question will appear. The crucial moment had arrived. Whether or not they could successfully answer the question of this strange stone door depended on whether the 2 sovereigns with dual totems could be recognized by this stone door. Chaos creates the world. The flaming bar lights up the world. Awaken the magic of the vermilion bird that is sleeping in my body. A layer of surging white light instantly spread out from his body, and a loud and clear phoenix cry resounded through the world. White like ice and snow condensed behind Jidong, turning into a huge white phoenix that spread its wings and was about to take flight. Under the gaze of the golden phoenix eyes, it collided with Jidong's body. There was no magic fluctuation in the dense white energy, but the moment it collided with Jidong, the moment the two fused, Jidong's entire temperament changed dramatically. In the dense white light, a thin layer of white armor appeared under his skin, instantly covering his whole body. Every piece of armor looked like a vermilion bird's feather, pure white, without a trace of impurity, with a temperament that only belonged to chaos. In an instant, it covered every part of Jidong's body. Even his face was completely covered. It was the vermilion bird transformation. Jidong was stubborn, proud, strong, but he was not reckless or careless. He could not imagine what would happen in the next moment, and in order to face the unknown, he had to maintain his best condition to deal with it. The illusory figures of the 2 sovereigns appeared behind Jidong with the ultimate dual fire. Under the influence of the magic of the vermilion bird transformation, they became extremely clear. Under Jidong's urging, the 2 sovereigns floated out, merging into the vermilion bird and soaring serpent totems on the stone door. The vermilion bird and soaring serpent, the 2 great totem carvings, shone brightly at the same time, but unlike Yao Qianshu, they did not emit corresponding light. They only lit up for a moment, then dimmed again, as if nothing had happened. Just as Jidong was feeling puzzled, suddenly, the 10 great totem carvings on the stone door all lit up. Chapter 110. Where the heavenly stem saints gather, all intruders shall be killed. Jidong injected the aura of the 2 monarch totems into the corresponding vermilion bird and soaring serpent statues in the stone door. After a moment of silence, the totem statues suddenly burst out with unprecedented dazzling brilliance. The 10 totem statues lit up at the same time, and an earth-shattering aura instantly filled every corner of the corridor. The wings behind Jidong, who had already displayed the vermilion bird transformation, could not move at all at this moment, and a strong fear filled his heart in an instant. What kind of power was that? For the first time, he experienced what the real suppression of the 5 elements was. First wood, second wood, third fire, fourth fire, fifth earth, sixth earth, seventh metal, eighth metal, ninth water, 10th water. All 10 elements of magic appeared in an instant. Vaguely, Ji Dong seemed to feel that he was in a huge yin and yang vortex at this time. But this huge vortex was composed of 10 elements of magic, and it was the ultimate 10 elements of magic. This was the real suppression of the 5 elements, the supreme suppression of the 10 elements that could not be resisted at all. It felt that the magic of each element was not particularly strong, and even did not exceed Ji Dong's own magic power of 3 crowns. However, when these 10 elements of magic were combined together, it became like a towering mountain. The terrifying suppression of the 5 elements turned into a huge, squeezing pressure. Ji Dong only felt as if he was about to become a speck of dust in this 10-colored light, and the bones of his whole body were constantly creaking under this terrifying pressure. The surface of his skin was rippling with layers of twisted ripples. It's over. Although Ji Dong had already expected the possible changes, he did not think that this painting would be so terrifying. Whether it was his body that had been soaked in dragon blood, or the vermilion bird inner armor that he had at this time, at most, it could only slightly prolong his life for a moment. He could not even breathe. The terrifying suppression produced by the fusion of the ultimate 10 elements of magic was perfect as one, like the most fundamental point, unbreakable, and not something he could contend with at all. Ji Dong vaguely felt that even if his magic power reached 6 crowns or above, facing this 10 elements of 5 elements of magic, he would still die. Whenever he encountered this kind of irresistible danger, there was only one figure in Ji Dong's heart. The shining brilliance, the perfect figure wrapped in red lotus petals, the flaming bar. He did not count on the flaming bar to save him, but only a deep longing and reluctance. In this world, the only thing that he could not abandon was the flaming bar. Apart from that, as someone who had already died once, he did not think that death was that scary. His body had already begun to twist, and every phoenix feather scale on the vermilion bird inner armor was trembling violently. A layer of milky white halo appeared on the surface of the armor, but in the face of the huge pressure produced by the fusion of 10 elements of magic, it did not have any effect. In his heart, Ji Dong laughed self-deprecatingly. Was this the holy king that the heavenly secret sect had mentioned? A dual attribute holy disciple? It seemed that these guys were just a bunch of liars. In his chest, the yin-yang vortex spun wildly under the huge pressure of the outside world. It had already reached an unprecedented, terrifying speed, but Ji Dong did not care at all. He did not even try to sense its changes. Of course, he would not give up. How could he be willing to die without exhausting the last bit of his strength? The wings of the vermilion bird inner armor pressed tightly against Ji Dong's body. Suddenly, Ji Dong felt a scorching and anxious spiritual undulation coming from his right wrist. It was the eclipse phoenix Hua-Er. When he thought of Hua-Er, who was still in a deep sleep in the vermilion bird bracelet, Ji Dong, who was originally not very unwilling, instantly became excited. The vermilion bird had entrusted its child to him, but he had brought Hua-Er to such a dangerous place. At this moment, in the face of the pressure of the yin-yang 5 elements, Hua-Er could not even struggle free from the vermilion bird bracelet. If he died, how could she leave this place? Even if he died, his soul would not be able to explain itself to the vermilion bird. No, I definitely can't die like this. The strong feeling of not daring to die transformed into an unyielding will. The aura of a proud monarch once again erupted from the depths of Ji Dong's heart. As his temperament changed, although his body was still gradually twisting and the vermilion bird inner armor was also about to collapse, the magic in Ji Dong's body showed an unprecedented change. At the same time, he felt a scorching energy undulation in his palms. Faintly, Ji Dong felt his body suddenly turn into a golden sun, and then instantly turn into a dark moon. The two constantly alternated, and the pressure of the 10 types of ultimate magic actually decreased. This was the result of the two monarchs' most original will and Ji Dong's unyielding heart completely fusing. At this moment, Ji Dong's aura that was filled with unwillingness seemed to resonate with the two monarchs' will. The two actually merged for the second time. Ji Dong felt that his will had suddenly become unprecedentedly large, and the proud temperament in his will had increased exponentially. The 10 types of magic that he could not contend with before seemed to have dimmed a bit. Although it was still difficult to move an inch, but under the support of this proud will, Ji Dong's body began to change. The golden Xingwu primordial yang sacred fire instantly covered his whole body, and the yin and yang crown above his head turned from white to golden, slowly falling on Ji Dong's head. The dazzling golden color completely dyed the vermilion bird inner armor on his body the same color, and surging golden halos penetrated his body. At this moment, Ji Dong looked exactly the same as the flame monarch that appeared behind him when he displayed the 3 crowns of magic. And behind the flame monarch that he had transformed into, the dazzling golden light condensed into a huge golden sun, unexpectedly replacing the original flame monarch, as if the sun had become Ji Dong's totem at this moment. Then, all the golden color instantly changed, turning into a pure black, a dark and deep black. The golden crown above his head also turned black at the same time, and his whole person also changed from the previous flame monarch to the dark flame devil. The dazzling golden light turned into a deep black, and a dark black moon quietly appeared. Compared to the previous light, this time it was extremely deep and full of danger. Gold and black. Once the two colors changed, the pressure of the 10 elements in the outside world instantly weakened. Then, the light on Ji Dong's body constantly changed between this gold and black, moving frantically. Every time the magic changed, the color of Ji Dong's body would change once. At the beginning, Ji Dong could still feel the changes in the gold and black, but as time passed, their changes became faster and faster, and also became stronger and stronger. The yin-yang crown in Ji Dong's body had already turned white because of the high speed, but because of this high-speed rotation, Ji Dong felt that they were about to collapse. The one eye of the two great monarchs had already disappeared without a trace, and what was left was only his proudin. They both had the aura of a king, but what Ji Dong possessed was a combination of selflessness and calmness, a combination of ruthlessness and overbearingness and gloominess. These two great qualities simultaneously merged into his body. Suddenly, that rapidly rotating yin-yang vortex stopped, no longer rotating, and all the magic condensed inside Ji Dong's chest, turning into a wisp of white flame that slowly rose. The yin-yang vortex actually disappeared just like that, and only this incomparably pure white flame became Ji Dong's body. Ji Dong's heart beat violently. He had vaguely guessed what this was, but he really did not dare to admit it. However, his guess was correct. His own unyielding and arrogant temperament had finally completely fused with the two great kings' temperaments. In this second fusion process, the two great kings' willpower had completely melted into his willpower, and there was no longer any distinction between them. From now on, he no longer used the two great kings' abilities, but the two great kings' willpower and skills had become his own willpower and temperament. This was a fundamental difference. Ji Dong was no longer borrowing, but controlling. It was also under such circumstances that the two great kings left behind after they were killed by the flaming bar also fused with each other. Extreme yang fire and extreme yin fire turned into the purest form of energy and fused together. Just like the process when Ji Dong turned all his magic into the Xingwu primordial yang sacred fire and fused with the solar eclipse yin fire in the vermilion bird's egg. However, the two great kings' ultimate flames were pure, and their magic power was also completely equal. In this fusion process, the bit of chaos that Ji Dong helped to condense in the flaming bar was finally ignited when the two great kings' magic power fused together, turning into the true chaos fire. Although it was only a simple wisp, This wisp of chaos was indeed something that countless powerhouses could not even touch in their entire lives. A speck of white light shone from the vermilion bird's inner armor in front of Ji Dong's chest. The diamond-like crystal that had appeared before reappeared, and a tiny wisp of white flame quietly appeared in that dazzling crystal. It was also at this moment that Ji Dong's body returned to normal. The two great kings' light completely disappeared, and all that was left was his pure white vermilion bird's inner armor. The suppression of the 10 elements and 5 elements stopped, and everything seemed to have become much quieter. In the air, the 10 different lights that represented the 10 elements still existed, but they no longer brought any pressure to Ji Dong. They only silently revolved around his body. Ji Dong realized that he could move again. He gently raised his hand and caressed the location of the crystal on his chest. He felt the existence of the white flame that did not seem to have any temperature, and a trace of enlightenment rippled in his heart. His eyes lit up, and the darkness in his eyes became boundlessly deep. At this moment, his thoughts also became unprecedentedly clear. The wisp of white flame in the crystal on his chest quietly attached to his right index finger and came out of his body. The moment the white flame appeared, the 10 elements mana that had just remained calm in the surroundings instantly turned into a huge vortex. This time, it was no longer an attack. Instead, it surged at an astonishing speed and fused with the white flame in a frenzy. The flames of chaos. Yes, this is the flames of chaos. The flames of chaos that only belong to Ji Dong. Ji Dong could clearly feel that the flames of chaos were like a bottomless abyss that devoured all the surging mana. In the past, when his embryonic form of chaos transformed into the origin of chaos, it once devoured all the mana in the air within the entire Central Plains. At this moment, the origin of chaos finally ignited this wisp of flames of chaos, devouring all the extreme mana in front of it. The huge stone door trembled violently, emitting an ear-piercing grinding sound. Every totem on the stone door uncontrollably surged out a surge of mana. The originally tiny wisp of flames of chaos grew extremely slowly under the infusion of the yin and yang 5 elements mana. It was as thin as silk and as tiny as before. If one only looked at it with their eyes, who could imagine that it could actually devour such a huge amount of mana? Meanwhile, the mana of Ji Dong's body also seemed to be growing. The rate of growth was not fast, but it was extremely solid. His original mana of 3 crowns was now undergoing a subtle change. His original aura was tainted with the aura of the flames of chaos. Finally, when all the extreme mana was cleansed by the flames of chaos, the thick and heavy stone door suddenly opened to both sides with a loud bang, revealing a deep and serene darkness. At this moment, the flames of chaos in Ji Dong's hand automatically returned to the dazzling crystal in front of his chest. His body warmed up, and his consciousness returned. The vermilion bird armor on Ji Dong's body also automatically faded away. In his chest, the yin and yang vortex reappeared. The gold and black lights resumed their rotation, but in the middle of their rotation, a wisp of true flames of chaos was quietly burning. Although Ji Dong was not sure what had happened, he knew that his mana had undergone a qualitative change. He did not know how to use the flames of chaos, but this wisp of flame that even the 10 extreme mana couldn't resist had already made his dual ultimate flames different. Perhaps any form of suppression from the 5 elements would no longer have any effect on him. The feeling of surviving a disaster made Ji Dong gasp a little. Although his energy and spirit were at their peak, and his mana had even improved, the high tension in his heart still made him feel a little tired. The surroundings had already turned into darkness. The red third fire burned in Ji Dong's right hand, illuminating the surroundings. The 2 thick and heavy doors had already disappeared. What remained was a flight of stairs that extended downwards, leading to an unknown place. Arriving at the location of the stone door, Ji Dong drew a fox with his right hand. The scarlet flames became stronger, and a strong third fire shot out of his palm, rushing into the darkness ahead. With a bang, the fireball exploded, turning into a large cloud of flames that scattered in all directions, illuminating the darkness ahead. Seeing everything in front of him, Ji-dong could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. What appeared in front of him was actually Chapter 111, Palace. Indeed, what appeared before Ji-dong's eyes was a magnificent palace-style building. Standing at the spot where the stone door was, under the illumination of a light after the explosion of Ji-dong's third fireball, there was a staircase that was about 100 meters long leading downwards, and right below the staircase was a complete palace-style building. The wall was in the shape of a decagon, and each side of the wall had a different color. All of them were shining with a special halo, as if they were made of some special material. The color of the wall corresponded to the color of the 10 different types of magic. From the staircase in front of him, all the way to the main entrance of the perimeter of the wall. The wall that the main entrance opened on was of the yellow fifth earth element. Within the wall, there was a circle of huge buildings, which appeared to be 10 palaces. Each of them occupied an area of more than 500 square meters. The 10 palaces formed a circle with a gap of about 30 meters between them, corresponding to the decagon wall outside. Inside the circle, there was a huge round platform. It was a round platform with 3 rings superimposed on each other, just like the altar in the palace that was specially used to offer sacrifices to the heavens. Just like the outer wall of the palace, the altar was also in the shape of a decagon. One had to go through 3 levels of stairs to reach the top of the platform. One could see that on the ground of the top platform, the patterns of the 10 different types of totems were engraved. They were not hollowed out, but carved into the ground. Despite the distance, Ji-dong could clearly feel the exquisiteness of these patterns. The craftsmanship was even better than the previous 10 doors. Ji-dong leaped up and sprinted toward the palace below. Although the majestic palace in front of him gave him a great shock, he could also feel that there was not a trace of energy fluctuation in the palace. Obviously, the reason why he could enter the stone door and come here was because the moment the flame of chaos was born, it had sucked away all the magic contained in the entire underground palace. No matter how the magic was left here at this moment, without the support of the magic, there was no longer anything that could threaten its existence. Ji-dong leaped up and sprinted towards the palace below. Although the majestic palace in front of him gave him a great shock, he could also feel that there was not a trace of energy fluctuation in the palace. Obviously, the reason why he could enter the stone door and come here was because the moment the flame of chaos was born, it had sucked away all the magic contained in the entire underground palace. No matter how the magic was left here at this moment, without the support of magic, there was nothing that could threaten its existence. "Money Tree, is that you?" Ji-dong shouted. At this time, the light of the Bing fire in the sky had faded. Darkness was coming again. Ji-dong ignited the Bing fire in his hand, illuminating the surroundings. "Ji-dong, you're here too." Yao Qinshu's voice was obviously panting, as if he was extremely tired. Ji-dong jumped up and went around the circular altar according to his previous memory to the first wood palace. Sure enough, he saw Yao Qinshu sitting at the door of the palace, and the door behind him was open. At this time, the firstwood saint disciple's face was very pale, and his clothes were torn in many places. There was a hint of surprise on his face. What just happened? Why did everything suddenly change? Yao Qinshu asked in confusion. Ji-dong frowned and said, "I should ask you, what happened after you were sucked away by the green light?" Yao Qinshu said, "Just now I just felt as if I had passed through something and came to the palace. Then a green light condensed into a figure exactly the same as me and launched an attack on me directly. It seemed to be a humanoid figure completely condensed from the ultimate firstwood magic. It had the same ability as me. Even the amount of magic was not the slightest bit different, and the attack magic skills were the same as mine. I was tired of parrying. Suddenly, I felt an irresistible, huge suction, and the opponent condensed from the ultimate firstwood magic disappeared. Even the palace that was originally full of huge magic seemed to be emptied, and everything turned into darkness." Ji-dong looked into the dark palace and said, "What's in the palace? What is this place? Have you figured it out?" Yao Qinshu said with some excitement. Jidong, this time we came to the right place. If I didn't guess wrong, this should be the place where the first generation of saints once practiced. Although I can't figure out how it was built, there's a long-lost five elements formation here. Inside the palace, whether it is the ground or the walls, it is engraved with the first wood magic formation. There has not been any change after 10,000 years, and there is still fresh air and magic remaining. Even the sound we heard before should come from the magic condensed by the five elements formation. All of this can only be described as the work of the gods. After 10,000 years, there are too many things that have been lost. Five elements formation? What is that? Jidong asked in surprise. Yao Qinshu stood up. At this time, his physical strength had recovered a little. Hyoheim waved and said, "You come with me." Then, he turned and walked into the first wood palace. Jidong ignited the third fire and followed him into the palace. Under the illumination of the third fire, he could vaguely see the situation inside the palace. In this huge palace, there were no windows on all sides. There were a total of 9 huge stone pillars supporting the palace. Whether it was the roof, the ground, or the surrounding walls and the 9 beads, they were inscribed with different patterns. Each pattern was different. Most of them were mainly azure dragons in different forms, and there were many green plants that Jidong couldn't name. Although there was no magic, when Jidong carefully looked at these carvings, he could still feel a very deep breath from them. On each pattern, there seemed to be a profound truth. Looking closely, one could find that there were a total of 9 patterns here. There were 9 forms of azure dragons surrounding 9 types of trees. Each type, there was a completely different feeling. Yao Qinshu's gaze was completely attracted to these patterns. He murmured, "The yin-yang 5 elements formation is the foundation of U.S. yin-yang 5 elements demon masters in ancient times. In ancient times, the yin-yang 5 elements demon masters' cultivation speed was much faster than us now. It was because of the existence of the yin-yang 5 elements formation. Each element has its own 9 kinds of basic formation. Every understanding of one, it would allow the demon master to obtain a powerful ability. If one used magic to inscribe this ancient formation and cultivated in it, one could borrow the essence of heaven and earth to fuse into one's body, greatly increasing the speed of cultivation. If one could understand all 9 formations, even if one did not cultivate, the essence of heaven and earth could automatically give one the magic of 6 crown level. It's actually so magical," Jidong exclaimed in surprise. Yao Qinshu said, "This is a place exclusive to my first wood element. Of course you can't see too many things. However, if it was your fire element formation, you would be like me now, your heart filled with the feeling of enlightenment. We already have a very good foundation, and we are the inheritors of the heavenly stem saints. This yin-yang 5 elements formation is really too important to us. Jidong, do you know why no one can make magic skill scrolls now? It's because the yin-yang 5 elements formation has been lost. This yin-yang 5 elements formation is the foundation of making magic skill scrolls. You only need to inscribe the formation on the paper smeared with magical beast crystal core powder, and then brand your own magic skill on it. Then you can make a magic skill scroll. This method is known by many senior demon masters, but because the yin-yang 5 elements formation has been lost, no one can do it. Jidong, this time we've struck it rich. What treasure is more precious than this yin-yang 5 elements formation?" Turning around abruptly, Yao Qinshu grabbed Jidong's shoulder and said, "Brother, we've done a great service this time. If our generation of holy disciples can learn their own elemental spirit designs, maybe in the near future, we'll be able to have powerful cultivation like the first generation of holy disciples." Jidong said, "Yao Qinshu, I have to pour cold water on you now. No matter how good this 5 elements formation is, I think we should find a way out first. Otherwise, if we're trapped here, even if you have the strength of a 9 crown, what's the point?" Yao Qinshu froze for a moment, then suddenly laughed. Jidong frowned and said, "What are you laughing at?" Yao Qinshu said, "Brother, why don't you understand? The mana in this underground palace comes from the yin-yang 5 elements formation. All the constructions were built because of this as well. The energy we encountered in the underground palace before was automatically absorbed by the yin-yang 5 elements formation. Although I don't know why it was suddenly emptied, I'm certain that as long as we can comprehend the 9 major formations of our respective element, even if we only comprehend one, we will be able to leave this place. I've read through the information from Tianji. Among the 10 elemental 5 elements formations, each element has a formation that belongs to its own element called the teleportation formation. As long as we set up the teleportation formation at 2 points, we can teleport to each other. However, the teleportation distance is determined by the strength of the magician's mana. Normally, a crowned magician is 100 meters. With every increase in strength, the teleportation distance will increase. I'm certain that as long as we find the teleportation formation, we will definitely be able to teleport out of this place. Our ancestors and magicians must have set it up outside. We can't possibly go through the fog swamp every time we come here to search for the 10,000-year-old bewitching tree. With our current mana, we can use the teleportation formation to travel a distance of 10,000 meters. It should be more than enough to leave this place. After listening to Yao Qinshu's words, Ji Dong couldn't help but think that choosing to come out with Yao Qinshu this time seemed to be the right choice. Not to mention anything else, at least he could learn a lot from him. In that case, let's start now. The dry food you brought is enough for us to eat for a month. If we save it, it will be more. Let's save time and find a way out first. Yao Qinshu nodded and said solemnly, Ji Dong, no matter what, even if you have to memorize everything, you must remember all the spirit designs of your element. You have 2 elements, so you have more to memorize than I do. These spirit designs were created by our ancestors in ancient times with their blood, sweat, and tears and great wisdom. You cannot make a single mistake, or else you will not be able to produce the spirit designs effects. Ji Dong said, I understand. Let's start separately now. Give me half of your food and water. Whoever finishes memorizing first will wait on the top of this altar. Oh, yes, if I am not there, will you have a problem illuminating? No, don't worry. I only need to inject the ultimate first wood magic power into these arrays, and they will light up on their own. There is no need to deliberately illuminate. Yao Qinshu's heart was completely on the first wood array in front of him at this time, and he was not verbose. He quickly divided half of the food and drinking water for Ji Dong to receive into the vermilion bird bracelet. Ji Dong withdrew from the first wood palace. Yao Qinshu closed the door of the palace and began to comprehend in an excited and urgent mood. Ji Dong did not delay time and quickly came to the palace representing the third fire. No matter how magical Yao Qinshu said, only when he really comprehends it could he realize whether it was really like what he said. It was unknown what wood and stone were used to build this palace. Even after 10,000 years, there was no sign of decay. However, just as Yao Qinshu said, this could also be due to the existence of the 5 elements formation, which protected the buildings here. Pushing the door in, there was no feeling of awkwardness. The thick door asked to open, and the red third fire lit up from every part of Ji Dong's body and suddenly illuminated the front. Stepping into it, Ji Dong slowly walked into the palace. Just at this moment, his eyes were fixed on a carved pattern on the front wall. It was a feeling of his mind being completely attracted. His line of sight seemed to be firmly attracted by a magnet, and he subconsciously walked towards the pattern step by step. It was a pattern with the vermilion bird as the main body. Under the illumination of the third fire on Ji Dong's body, the relief on the wall showed a crystal red luster, bright and shiny, which was very strange. In the pattern, the vermilion bird spread its wings, flapping its wings and flying high. A strange magic pattern radiated from its body, surrounding its body, forming a complete circular pattern. Each of the magic patterns seemed to have a special vitality, beating like flames, not beating in the relief, but beating in Ji Dong's heart. At this moment, it felt as if Ji Dong himself had become the vermilion bird, and the magic power in his body had automatically passed through the yin and yang vortex, completely turning into the ultimate third fire. The red third fire turned golden, making the whole hall brighter. As if affected by Jidong's third heaven primordial yang sacred fire, the pattern lit up under the gaze of Jidong. The third heaven primordial yang sacred fire was attracted to the pattern like silk, and the soaring vermilion bird suddenly turned golden red. At this moment, Jidong's whole body had completely entered a special state, and even the magic fluctuations in his body seemed to follow a special path and tremble. He finally understood why Yao Qianshu was so excited before. This was indeed a very magical pattern. In addition to the trace of chaotic fire in his body, Jidong himself seemed to have entered this special state. On the surface of his skin, a bright milky white luster slowly emerged, and the vermilion bird's inner armor was faintly discernible without being activated. Chapter 112. With a soft cry, the vermilion bird bracelet on Jidong's right wrist lit up. Red wings unfurled, and it flew out of the vermilion bird bracelet on her own. She spread her wings and soared up from Jidong's arm. Her pair of golden eyes, like Jidong's, also stared at the pattern, her eyes shining brightly. The eclipse phoenix spread her wings and suddenly flew in front of Jidong. In an instant, her posture was exactly the same as that of the relief on the wall. If the relief was dead, then in front of him was indeed a living vermilion bird. Although the energy of her body was different from the vermilion bird's and was the same ultimate dual fire as Jidong's, her appearance was not much different from the vermilion bird's. It was just that her body was smaller. The clear cry of the phoenix was like a bolt of lightning that instantly shook Jidong's mind. Everything in front of him suddenly disappeared, and the golden red light and shadow turned into countless shining symbols that appeared in the depths of his mind. Every pulsating mageweth was like a brand in his soul. Other than the golden red color, Jidong could no longer feel anything in the outside world. The vermilion bird's inner armor had been automatically released at some point. A pair of milky white wings unfurled behind him, and the golden red flame spread on every feather of the vermilion bird's inner armor. As the wings unfurled, he was completely immersed in it. He wasn't trying to memorize them. He was truly comprehending them. Every single mageweth contained a profound truth that bloomed in his mind. Jidong felt as if he had turned into a ball of ultimate fire, the most original flame. He was like a real fire phoenix soaring in the sky, spreading its wings and soaring high. The profound meaning of the first diagram of the third fire array was flight. Compared to Yao Qianshu, Jidong had a unique advantage. He had personally been with the vermilion bird and obtained the vermilion bird's phoenix feathers as needles. In addition, was really by his side, and he had his own wings. This was why he was the first to be attracted by this relief pattern when he entered the third fire palace. Even Jidong himself did not know how much time had passed. When his mind regained consciousness, the pattern had been deeply imprinted in his mind. It was impossible to forget it, even if he wanted to. Behind him, the golden flame gathered to form the soaring yang fire array. It was exactly the same as the relief on the wall. Compared to the simple totem pattern that appeared in the ordinary mode, the array full of mageweth seemed to be truly perfect. The wings of the vermilion bird inner armor spread out, and the golden flame spread on every trace of the feathers. Jidong's whole person entered a special state. With a flash of golden light, his Shun body was already in midair. All the unnaturalness of human flight seemed to have completely disappeared at this moment. It seemed that he had truly become a fire phoenix, able to soar freely in the sky. Yes, he comprehended, in a real sense, the soaring yang fire of the third Fire 9 major arrays. At this time, the vermilion bird's inner armor had also turned completely golden. Other parts of the body did not feel much different, but the wings on Jidong's back gave him an unprecedented sense of harmony. If he had only treated these wings as a tool when he was practicing flying in the past, then now, these wings had truly become a part of his body. The 5 elemental formation, This was the five elemental formation created by the ancient ancestors with great wisdom. Jidong was overwhelmed with emotions. He knew that Yao Qinshu was right. If he could comprehend all 9 major arrays, he would definitely be able to directly upgrade to the level of a 6th crown. The yin-yang crown that had been dyed gold above his head had impressively 2 complete royal stars. Jidong's mana had also unknowingly broken through to level 34. In addition to the improvement when the chaotic fire was formed, there was no doubt that completing the comprehension of the first array also played a crucial role. The meditation array seemed to have a better effect than pure cultivation. Almost impatiently, Jidong wanted to find the second array. At this moment, an extremely familiar energy fluctuation appeared on his chest. Pieces of red lotus stretched out, and a mana fluctuation that made his heart beat faster every time appeared. Although Jidong was currently in a state of excitement and couldn't wait to learn the 5 elements array, when this energy appeared, his heart immediately calmed down and his excitement turned into excitement. Compared to increasing his strength, only this familiar owner of mana was more important to him. Flaming bar. Jidong almost couldn't wait to call out loudly. The gentle and pleasant voice of the flaming bar sounded in Jidong's heart. "I'm sorry, Jidong. I didn't think that my appearance at the ball would put you in such a situation." Jidong hurriedly said, "It's all right. If I had to choose again, even if it was 1,000 times or 10,000 times, I would still hope to see you at the ball and have you be my dance partner once. Not to mention leaving the Heavenly STEM Academy. Even if I had to die immediately, I would still be willing." The flaming bar was silent for a moment, then suddenly burst into laughter and said, "Jidong, don't say such silly things. However, although it brought you a lot of trouble this time, it doesn't seem to be a bad thing. I really didn't think that in such a short period of time, your flame of chaos had already been ignited. The ignition of the flame of chaos means that the wills of the 2 sovereigns have already disappeared and have completely fused with you. From now on, you won't be learning their demonic skills anymore. Instead, when your strength reaches a certain level, you will be able to comprehend the demonic skills that you possess. The flame of chaos represents the origin. It represents creation. The reason why I was able to defeat the 2 sovereigns was because of its existence. Now that you have it, even if I were to compare myself to you, the only difference is that my flame of chaos is slightly stronger than yours. It's been a long time since I've drunk the fine wine you made. I really miss it." Without hesitation, Jidong said, "Then I'll go make the wine for you right now." The flaming bar said, "No, to you now, it's more important to learn the 5 elements formation before you." However, Jidong said, "Compared to making wine for you, learning these formations is nothing. Flaming bar, let me go, I want to see you." His voice unconsciously trembled as he said the last 4 words. Yes, he really missed her. Even though he had experienced many things in the past month, his constant yearning for her had never lessened. Instead, it grew stronger every day. The flaming bar sighed softly. His faint voice seemed to contain many complicated emotions as he said, "Jidong, I really can't. I haven't finished my cultivation because I felt the changes on your side. I have to remind you that the 5 elements formation before you is extremely important to you. Only by learning them can you break through to the level where you can protect yourself in a short period of time. However, there is one thing I have to remind you. The 5 elements formation before you is, in a sense, the 9 forms that the heavenly stem divine beasts took when they were born. These 9 forms are remembered by the elements in the world, which is why they have such great power. If one day you can truly comprehend them and perfectly integrate their power with yourself, then you will really have the power to protect me. Moreover, the power of the 5 elements formation is extremely great and will have a qualitative impact on your own mana. It's fine to just learn one formation, but you have the ultimate dual fire. Because of the 5 elements formation, your yin and yang vortex can't maintain a state of balance after you learn multiple formations of the same attribute. In order not to let the yin and yang vortex be out of balance and affect you, I suggest that when you learn the 5 elements formation, you must combine the 2 fire attributes of the 3rd and 4th. In other words, After you meditate and comprehend a third fire formation, you must first comprehend a fourth fire formation. This way, you will always be able to maintain the balance of yin and yang in your body. Thus, you can achieve the goal of comprehending the dual attribute formation at the same time and improve your mana. Yin and yang complement each other. I believe that one day, you will be able to comprehend more from it and create your own formation. Ji Dong listened carefully to the flaming bar's words, and his heart gradually calmed down from the excitement he felt when he heard the flaming bar's voice. Flaming bar, I understand what you mean. I'll go to the fourth fire palace to learn now. The flaming bar smiled and said, That's good. There are similarities between the 5-element spirit arrays, but there are also great differences. They all have their own unique effects. Take your little friend with you. Eclipse Phoenix, she can be considered to be blessed by nature. The benefits of the 5-element spirit array for her are no less than yours. This little fellow is congenitally deficient, so she can use the 5-element spirit array to recover and adjust. Even if her mother saw the third fire spirit array in front of her, she would be pleasantly surprised. I'm going to continue my seclusion. Goodbye. Ji Dong asked eagerly, Flaming Bar, how long are you going to be in seclusion? The Flaming Bar said softly, I don't know, but no matter what the situation is, I will always be watching you, and I will always be by your side. Don't forget the red lotus on your chest. The red lotus petals quietly left, and the Flaming Bar's voice faded. Ji Dong stood there in a daze. The longing in his heart did not decrease because of the Flaming Bar's voice. Instead, it was released like a volcanic eruption. He tore open the front of his shirt and looked down at the lifelike red lotus brand on his chest. In his heart, there were only 5 words that kept echoing, Flaming Bar, I miss you. Time flowed like water, and the years flew by quietly in this silent underground palace. Without the sun and moon, he naturally did not know the cycle of 60 years. It was not until there were no dry rations and drinking water that Ji Dong woke up from his meditation. As soon as he stepped onto the circular altar, he suddenly had an indescribable feeling. This altar did not seem to be an inanimate object, but was filled with the ripples of magic that contained the laws of heaven and earth. Unknowingly, the underground palace was no longer dark. Every palace was emitting a faint glow of its own element. The magic that was instantly extracted by the chaotic fire was slowly recovering. Although it was still difficult to restore the scene when Ji Dong and Yao Qianshu first came here, there was no doubt that the 5-elemental formation here would continuously guide the vitality of heaven and earth. When Ji Dong set foot on the last floor of the circular platform, he happened to see Yao Qianshu climbing up on the other side of the platform. The two looked at each other and couldn't help but laugh. Although they had food and water, they had not washed for such a long time. One could imagine what they would look like. Ji Dong was a little better. His vermilion bird inner armor had the effect of cleaning the skin on its own. At most, his hair was a little messy, and his beard grew out. Yao Qianshu was unlucky. Although his extreme firstwood magic was full of huge vitality, it could not help him reduce dirt. During this time, he did not have the slightest mood to think about this. All his mind was focused on comprehending the firstwood formation. Haha, Ji Dong, how did you become like this? Yao Qianshu pointed to Ji Dong and laughed. Ji Dong said angrily, Don't come over. If your nose is still normal, I suggest you smell yourself first. Looking down at himself, and then scratching his hair that seemed to be glued together, Yao Qianshu smiled bitterly and said, How did we all become like this? How long has it been? Ji Dong said helplessly, How do I know? There is no 60 years in a mountain. You can still see the sun and the moon to judge the time. We don't have anything here. Yao Qianshu smiled and said, However, it's all worth it. It's worth it. Ji Dong, do you remember it all? Ji Dong nodded. I remember it all. You are the same. Yao Qianshu said with some pride. Of course. It's a pity that I can only be considered to have comprehended 3 trigram formations, and it's only a preliminary understanding. The more I meditate, the more I can feel the wonders of these trigram formations. It's as if there are endless mysteries contained within them. Previously, I thought that after a period of hard work, I would be able to use these trigram formations. Now, I understand that if we can comprehend them in our lifetime, we can thank the heavens. Jidong said in deep thought, the five elements trigram formations are broad and profound. It is not only an understanding of the elements themselves, but also a guide to our own abilities. Yao Qinshu asked, what about you? How much did you comprehend? Jidong stretched out 3 fingers and said, same as you, 3 trigram formations. Yao Qinshu praised, your cultivation is not as good as mine. It's already very good that you can comprehend so much. It's time for us to leave this place. A hint of a smile appeared on Jidong's face. Even though he had lived 2 lives, he couldn't help but feel proud at this moment. The 3 trigram formations he mentioned were 3 trigram formations for each fire. That's right, his cultivation was not as good as Yao Qinshu's. In terms of wisdom and comprehension, he wasn't as good as Yao Qinshu either. However, he had a more determined heart. Furthermore, he had the help of the eclipse phoenix, and the yin and yang complementing effect of the 2 fires. In addition, after being immersed in dragon blood, his physical strength was far higher than Yao Qinshu's. These days, he had been meditating without rest, which was why he had such an effect. Chapter 113. Just as Yao Qinshu said, the more he meditated on the 5 elements array, the more he could discover the endless mysteries within it. Just the 3 arrays were enough for Jidong to feel endless benefits. However, as he continued to meditate, he also found that it was extremely difficult to comprehend further. It was impossible without a lot of time and energy to guarantee it. Yao Qinshu said, Jidong, I think this is the most suitable place for us heavenly stem holy disciples to cultivate in the future. Everyone is here to learn about the 5 elements formation, which will undoubtedly increase our strength greatly. When we come again, we'll make ample preparations. As time goes by, we'll definitely be able to comprehend more things. Jidong smiled and said, I don't have time to comprehend now. I'm starving and my mouth is dry. Aren't you the same? The 2 looked at each other and couldn't help but laugh. Yao Qinshu walked to the pattern representing first wood on the altar and sat down. Jidong walked to the 3rd fire pattern and sat down. When the 2 looked at each other again, there seemed to be some provocation. It was time to show the results of their comprehension during this time. In order to leave this place, there was no doubt that the 3 arrays they had comprehended included the existence of this teleportation array. The white sun corona appeared above their heads at the same time. The emerald color representing the ultimate first wood and the golden red color representing the ultimate 3rd fire also rose in an instant. The totem patterns at the places where they sat flashed at the same time, and the 2 also looked at each other. The white sun corona above Yao Qinshu's head had impressively turned into 2 half-corona stars. His magic power had been promoted from level 42 to level 45. Such an improvement in less than 2 months was undoubtedly shocking. However, when Yao Qinshu saw the sun corona above Jidong's head, he couldn't help but be a little sluggish. 4 corona stars impressively appeared above the sun corona. Jidong's magic power had been promoted from level 32 to level 38, a whole 6 levels. That was a whole 6 levels of improvement. The magic power gap between the 2 had been greatly reduced. At this moment, Yao Qinshu couldn't help but recall Tianji's words. Jidong was the holy king of this generation's heavenly stem holy disciples. Extreme demonic power rose at the same time, and a circular array appeared behind the 2 of them. Behind Yao Qinshu, an azure dragon coiled around him like a cloud, spitting out mist, and rhombus-shaped demonic patterns surrounded the azure dragon. Behind Jidong, the golden red vermilion bird spread its wings and stood calmly, and the cone-shaped demonic patterns formed a vortex around it. These were the Yang wood teleportation formation and Yang fire teleportation formation that they had comprehended. In the midst of the dense demonic power, above the altar, the first wood and 3rd fire totems lit up at the same time. A smoke-like demonic light rose up and turned into 2 light pillars that completely enveloped their bodies. The teleportation formation shone brightly and floated up on its own, fusing into their respective light pillars. The intense light bloomed in an instant and then converged. In the next moment, their bodies had already disappeared without a trace. This wasn't the first time Ji-dong had teleported, but it was definitely the first time he had teleported under his own control. Although he still didn't know where the destination of the teleportation was, he controlled his own magic power to combine with the teleportation formation and felt the mysteries of the teleportation formation. This feeling of crossing through the void still gave him a new understanding. With a flash of light, Ji-dong and Yao Qianshu appeared almost at the same time. The two of them closed their eyes at the same time. They hadn't seen the sun for at least a month. This sudden light made it difficult for them to adapt to it. It took a full quarter of an hour before they gradually regained their vision. The sky was bright and the sun was shining brightly. Feeling the light shining through the uneven shadows of the trees, the two of them couldn't help but let out a long sigh. Their judgment was correct. If they wanted to leave the underground palace, they had to rely on the teleportation formation. At this moment, they were in a forest. Under such a bright and generous situation, the two of them looked at each other again, looking at each other's disheveled appearance. Especially Yao Qianshu's appearance. It was even worse than a beggar's. Yao Qianshu raised his hand and pressed on a big tree beside him. A green light flashed, and his eyes instantly lit up. He said, "We are in the fog forest. That teleportation formation sent us into the forest. If it's only the two of us coming next time, we only need to enter the fog forest, and we should be able to use the teleportation formation to directly enter the underground palace." Ji-dong nodded and said, "We still need to find something to eat first, clean up our bodies, and change into clean clothes." Yao Qianshu laughed and said, "Of course. If only the 9th or 10th water saints were here, there wouldn't be any problem washing your body. Food is easy. With me, the first wood saint, around, do you think the forest can make you hungry? Where there is a forest, there must be a river flowing through. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so many plants. Come with me." The forest was definitely the territory of the wood element magician. Ji-dong also didn't know how Yao Qianshu did it. In less than an hour, the two of them had already washed their bodies. They sat beside a small but very clear river and ate a lot of fruits. After eating dry rations for such a long time, having fruits to eat was undoubtedly the happiest thing for them. There were many definitions of happiness. Most of the time, it didn't have to be something expensive. Happiness also didn't have any direct relationship with money. When someone had a stomachache, it was a kind of happiness to be able to find the toilet immediately. When someone finished detoxifying, it was also a kind of happiness to be able to have toilet paper. And at this moment, to Ji-dong and Yao Qianshu, eating these fresh fruits was the greatest happiness. The sweet juice nourished his lungs. Yao Qianshu couldn't help but moan in comfort. He directly laid down on the grass and muttered to himself, "Ji-dong, I want to sleep like this under the sun. I didn't feel tired when I was in the underground palace. I only felt tired after coming out. Aren't you tired?" Ji-dong smiled faintly and said, "I'm all right. Don't be in a hurry to sleep. I have a present for you." Present? Yao Qianshu's money tree personality didn't change even after learning about the 5-element formation. When he heard the word present, his eyes instantly lit up. He rolled over and sat up, looking at Hyoheim with longing. Ji-dong looked at him and couldn't help but laugh. He said, "Can you not always see gold in your eyes? I don't have any money to give you. A crystal core is fine too. Or a crystal crown. I can make do with it. It doesn't have to be money." Yao Qianshu said with a fawning expression. Ji-dong shook his head helplessly. With a shake of his right hand, a bottle of wine jumped into his grasp. He placed it on the ground at the side. Then, he took out 2 more bottles of fine wine and a cocktail shaker. This time, we ventured into the underground palace to search for the treasure. Although it was full of dangers, it was all thanks to your treasure map that I was able to learn the 5-element formation. I'll mix a glass of wine for you. Consider it a present." Yao Qianshu said, a little discouraged, "You know how to mix wine? I don't really care much for wine. It's been a while since I've had one." A bitter smile appeared at the corner of Ji Dong's mouth. He said, "You're the first person to taste the cocktail I make so reluctantly. I hope you can do the same in the future. It'll serve as a spur for me." As he spoke, he opened the cocktail shaker and poured the 3 types of fine wine into it according to a certain ratio. He closed the lid, and with a flick of his wrist, the cocktail shaker flew into the air and began to spin rapidly. Seeing Ji Dong's technique of mixing wine, Yao Qinshu's eyes lit up. He exclaimed in his heart, "So fast." The cocktail shaker seemed to come alive in Ji Dong's single hand. The crystal shaker danced continuously with the gold and white wine, forming a special glow. As his strength increased, Ji Dong became more skillful in the area of mixing wine. He had even gradually figured out some of the techniques he had imagined in his previous life. Just like the 9 heavens fairies descending to the mortal world that shocked Fury, even when he was at his peak, he might not have been able to make it every time. But now, with his superb physical fitness, he succeeded on the first try. 3 balls of light appeared like explosions. Ji Dong was still sitting on the lawn, still waving one hand. However, in an instant, Yao Qinshu felt his vision blur. It was as if 3 golden suns had risen from Ji Dong's head and sides. Only the word shocked could describe his current feelings. Even if he didn't know much about mixing wine, he could see that Ji Dong's skill in this area was profound. The light disappeared at the same time. The 3 suns seemed to have fallen in an instant and landed in Ji Dong's palm. Ji Dong held the cocktail shaker firmly in his hand. Through the crystal walls, one could see that the wine was still spinning rapidly. Yao Qinshu couldn't help but ask, "Ji Dong, are you really a bartender?" Ji Dong smiled calmly and said, "I prefer it when you call me the god of wine." His words sounded a little arrogant, but he did have the ability to do so. After coming to this world, even when facing the 9-star master bartender, Thunder Emperor, who had the highest title in the Bartenders Guild, he had never tasted defeat. Moreover, he had always used the purest bartending techniques without the assistance of any magic. Before anyone could defeat him, no one could shake his title as the god of wine. Yao Qinshu laughed and said, "All right, then I'll have a taste of the cocktail made by the god of wine." Ji Dong opened the cocktail shaker and poured the wine that had already turned pale gold into a martini glass. He passed it to Yao Qinshu and said, "This glass of wine is made with 3/10 bowls almond brandy, 5/10 gin, and 2/10 orange-flavored vodka. Its name is Heaven." Yao Qinshu took the glass and carefully looked at the pale gold wine. He said, "The name sounds good. Let me try it." As he spoke, he took a big gulp. Looking at the way Yao Qinshu drank, Ji Dong couldn't help but frown. He was already starting to regret mixing the wine for Yao Qinshu. It was originally a form of gratitude, but now it seemed like it was no different from a cow chewing on a peony. Could this guy taste the quality of the wine? He really doubted it. Yao Qinshu drank the glass of heaven in 2 or 3 gulps. He turned his head to look at Hyoheim, his eyes sparkling. Ji Dong was about to imitate Yao Qinshu and lie down for a while, but Yao Qinshu grabbed him and said, "Ji Dong, one more, can't you?" Ji Dong said calmly, "Delicacies can't be overused, especially with wine. If your tongue becomes numb from drinking it, you can forget about tasting the deliciousness of wine in the future." Yao Qinshu exclaimed, "It's so delicious. I've never tasted wine that tastes like this." The hot air mixed with the fragrance of the wine made my soul rise in an instant. Heaven, this name is really appropriate. Ji Dong, you must be a member of the Bartenders Guild, right? Ji Dong found it a little funny and said, "Wrong answer. I'm going to sleep for a while. Aren't you tired too? Let's rest for a while, then we can discuss where to go next." Yao Qinshu said helplessly, "I say, Ji Dong, can you not always act so mature? In terms of age, I'm older than you by 5 years." Ji Dong lay down on the grass and said, "I mature early, can't I?" Yao Qinshu chuckled and said, "Ji Dong, I think if we cooperate and open a bar, it would be a good choice. You'll mix the wine, and I'll be in charge of running the business. How about that? We'll split the money we earn, okay?" Ji Dong glared at him in annoyance and said, "Not everyone is qualified to drink the wine I mix." With that, he closed his eyes and ignored Yao Qianshu. Yao Qianshu had no choice but to lie down as well. The two of them were really exhausted during this period of time. Although it was not a good choice to sleep in the wild, they were too lazy to move, so they just fell asleep. The sky was their blanket, and the earth was their bed. This feeling was very strange, but it was also the sleep that was closest to the qi of heaven and earth. After an unknown amount of time, Ji Dong, who was sleeping soundly, suddenly woke up. There seemed to be a sense of danger in the unseen world that scared him out of his deep sleep. He did not rush to open his eyes. Instead, he focused on his hearing and listened to the movements around him. Vaguely, there was a whooshing sound coming from afar, and it was rapidly approaching them. Turning over and sitting up, Ji Dong pulled Yao Qianshu up beside him and said, "Hurry and wake up. There might be a situation." Yao Qianshu said in a daze, "What's the situation? I'm sleeping like a log. Don't disturb me. I'm exhausted these days." With the Bing fire in his body, Ji Dong slapped Yao Qianshu's shoulder. The burning sensation was like a scorching fire, and Yao Qianshu cried out in pain. This time, he could not stay awake even if he wanted to. Before he could reprimand Ji Dong had already pulled him up. The whooshing sound became clearer and clearer, and it was coming in their direction in a straight line. "Ji Dong, what's the matter?" Yao Qianshu asked as he rubbed his shoulder. His spirit had not fully recovered, and he was very dissatisfied. Ji Dong said in a low voice, "Something is approaching us. Be careful." Right at this moment, a voice that Ji Dong was very familiar with sounded, "Ji Dong, it's really not an easy thing to find you. I didn't expect that it would take a whole 3 months. Do you know that in these 3 months, Central Plains City will change drastically because of you?" Chapter 114. Hearing this voice, Ji Dong's heart skipped a beat. Without hesitation, he chanted in a low voice, "Chaos creates the world. Flaming bar illuminates the world. Awaken, vermilion bird's magic slumbering in my body." Milky white light flashed, and the yin-yang vortex in his chest spun at high speed. The vermilion bird armor covered his entire body. Even Yao Qianshu was shocked to see Ji Dong use the vermilion bird transformation for the first time. Ji Dong said in a low voice, "I don't have time to explain to you. It's an enemy from the Central Plains City. His cultivation is as high as 6 crowns. Let's go." As he spoke, he held Yao Qianshu's armpit with one hand and spread his wings. With a flap, he took Yao Qianshu into the sky and flew away. "It took so much effort to find you. It won't be so easy to leave." That familiar voice sounded again. At the same time, another voice with a muffled roar exploded. The earth trembled, and a layer of intense yellow light instantly covered the ground. Immediately after, a rumbling sound like that of an earthquake rang out. Ji Dong and Yao Qianshu felt their bodies sink, and the two of them, who had risen less than 20 meters into the air, fell back to the ground. Even Ji Dong's vermilion bird wings could no longer carry them up. Yao Qianshu said in shock, "Earth element gravity technique." He knew about this type of area of effect technique. According to his memory, this was a powerful technique that only earth element magicians who had reached 6 crowns could use. Although it wasn't a sure kill technique, it was extremely useful in actual combat. When the two landed on the ground, they felt their bodies become much heavier. If it was just Ji Dong alone, he might be able to use the soaring sun flame formation to break through the gravity technique. However, he didn't try because he knew for sure that he couldn't fly away with Yao Qianshu. The difference in magic power and the weight of the two of them made it impossible for him to escape with his current cultivation. In the forest by the river, there was a whooshing sound as 16 black shadows scuttled out at the same time. Their speed was unbelievably fast, and they shot forward like arrows. It seemed that in the blink of an eye, these 16 shadows had already surrounded Ji Dong and Yao Qianshu. All of them were dressed in black, and the white crowns on their heads displayed the demonic energy of the 3 crowns. They were all of the earth element. All 16 of them moved as one. Not only were they fast, but they were also moving in an orderly manner. Their breaths were even, as if they were one person. Without a doubt, they were all magicians who had undergone special training. Then, two people walked out from the forest. The one walking in front was the Six Crowns Fire Divine Scholar of the Central Empire, Huang Liming, who had once chased after Ji Dong, only to be dragged into the sky by Ji Dong's vermilion bird transformation. Beside him was a middle-aged man in his 40s. Above his head, a white earth element sun crown shone brightly. He also had 6 crowns and 3 stars, which represented his strength of level 66, the same cultivation as Huang Liming. Ji Dong didn't expect that Huang Liming would actually find him. After all, he and Yao Qianshu had just left the underground palace. Even if the two of them had slept for a long time, it couldn't have been more than 24 hours. "How did you find me?" Ji Dong asked in a low voice. When Huang Liming saw Ji Dong, his expression was no longer as relaxed as it was the first time. Instead, there was a hint of graveness and relief, as if he had heaved a sigh of relief. Without hiding anything, he said, "Although I let you escape, I left a mark on your body. That is the skill of my explosive fire lion. It will take at least half a year for the mark to disappear. When I went back to find a suitable helper to deal with you, I found that you had already entered deep into the Earth Spirit Mountain Range. The core region of the Earth Spirit Mountain Range is a place that none of us dared to enter easily. Although we didn't understand how you did it, we could only wait. It wasn't easy for us to sense your aura leaving the Earth Spirit Mountain Range. We chased you all the way to Tianji City and discovered that you had killed a noble there. However, in the blink of an eye, we lost track of you again. We were still one step too late. Left with no choice, we could only wait in the New Oding Forest where you disappeared. After waiting for more than a month, we finally found you. This time, I won't let you leave so easily." Ji Dong listened quietly to Huang Liming's narration, but his heart sank. Just Huang Liming alone was already an extremely difficult opponent to deal with, let alone an enemy of the same level who had the earth element. Without a doubt, this person was here to restrict his ability to fly. Even if he was a 6-crown earth element heavenly scholar, not everyone could use a rare magic skill like the gravity spell. "Yao Qianshu, you go first. I'll hold them off for a while," Ji Dong said in a low voice. Yao Qianshu's expression changed. "Ji Dong, don't forget who we are. Do you want me to run away without a fight? If I really do that, how can I raise my head in front of us in the future? We were born with a silver spoon in our mouths. How can we be defeated so easily? So what if you're a 6-crown earth element heavenly scholar? Let's fight. Even if they want to kill us, they'll have to pay a painful price." "A painful price? Did I hear wrongly? Kids these days are getting more and more arrogant." His voice was very low, as if his magic was filled with pressure. Looking at Ji Dong and Yao Qianshu, he couldn't help but reveal a bit of disdain. These past few days, he had been following Huang Liming to search for Ji Dong, eating and sleeping in the open. With his status as a heavenly scholar, he had long been dissatisfied with Ji Dong's vermilion bird inner armor. No matter what, Ji Dong was only a level 38 third fire master. He could still clearly remember that the last time he chased after Ji Dong, the young man in front of him was only at the 31st level. In less than 3 months, he had actually risen to the 38th level. Such a cultivation speed could be said to be unheard of, and he found it hard to believe. However, no matter what, Ji Dong's current strength was still within his control. No matter what, he had to bring him back first. Yao Qianshu looked at the earth element heavenly scholar with disdain and said, "Whether you're arrogant or not, we will use our strength to prove it to you. So what if you're a heavenly scholar? In a few years, you'll just be an ant in our hands." The earth element heavenly scholar did not get angry. Instead, he laughed and said, "A few years? Do you still have a few years? 16 whirlwind guards. What are you waiting for? Take them down." As he spoke, he had already retracted the gravity spell that he had released. This gravity spell did not differentiate between friend and foe. If he kept using it, even he would be affected. Moreover, the gravity spell also consumed a considerable amount of mana. He only needed to restrict Ji Dong's ability to fly. Yes, the 16-crowned earth element devils surrounding Ji Dong and Yao Qianshu moved at the same time. Although they were of the earth element, their speed was unbelievably fast. Vaguely, Ji-dong could see that there was something special about the boots they were wearing. The 16 of them moved together, but they did not directly attack Hyoheim and Yao Qianshu. Instead, they quickly took a few steps back, increasing the distance between them. Only then did 4 of them suddenly increase their speed and directly rushed towards Ji-dong and Yao Qianshu. In midair, a stone spear appeared in each of their right hands, and they stabbed towards the 2 at lightning speed. The angles at which the 4 stone spears were thrown were extremely tricky. Although there were only 4 of them, they sealed off all possible escape routes for Ji-dong and Yao Qianshu. These whirlwind guards did not release their mana outwards, but it was as if they had completely condensed their mana into the stone spears in their hands. Coupled with the speed at which they moved, it was indeed extraordinary. With the strength of a crown devil and the tacit cooperation between them, even if they were against an ordinary crown devil, they would still have a considerable advantage. "Let me!" Yao Qianshu shouted. Green light flashed and instantly surrounded him and Ji-dong. His sun crown of 4 crowns appeared in an instant. Immediately after, 4 huge logs appeared without warning and blocked the attack of the 4 whirlwind guards. When Yao Qianshu and Ji-dong were together, he seemed very approachable and even a little funny. In reality, as a first wood holy disciple, his arrogance was not any less than Ji-dong's. Although he was surrounded by powerful enemies, it fully stimulated the fighting spirit in his heart. The instant release of the 4 woods devil skill fully displayed his control over mana. Amidst the loud rumbles, although the stone spears in the hands of the 4 whirlwind guards pierced into the huge logs, they did not achieve their goal. The huge logs that flickered with green light were not pierced by the stone spears condensed from 5th earth mana. Instead, as the logs rotated violently, it was as if they came to a sudden stop, forcefully twisting the stone spears out of their hands. However, just as Yao Qianshu was about to counterattack, these whirlwind guards fully displayed their valiant strength. The 4 of them did not stop at all after their first attack failed. They turned around and flew away, quickly leaving the battlefield. At the same time, another 4 whirlwind guards rushed over. They were like the waves of the sea. Before the first wave had subsided, another wave rose. The stone spears turned into stone axes, falling from the sky with a momentum that could split the heavens and the earth, directly chopping towards the 4 huge logs. Yao Qianshu snorted coldly and said, "Even a grain of rice can shine." The 4 rotating huge logs suddenly exploded. Ji-dong, who was in the inner circle, could clearly see Yao Qianshu's feet moving in a mysterious footwork, circling around his body. He had already thrown out 4 consecutive punches, which landed on the 4 huge logs. In the next moment, the huge logs exploded, turning into countless wooden spears that shot out. The tip of each wooden spear carried a jade-like luster. This was Yao Qianshu's true strength. This was also the first time Ji-dong had seen it, and he could not help but sigh in admiration in his heart. Although he was a dual elemental cultivator, with Ho-Er's help and the Vermilion Bird Inner Armor's amplification, it was still difficult to say who would win if he were to go against Yao Qianshu, the first wood divine disciple. Yao Qianshu's control over his skills and his own cultivation base were both above his. The whirlwind guards clearly did not expect Yao Qianshu to be this powerful. Among the 5 elements, Wood countered Earth, while Yang would counter Yang Earth. They were already at a disadvantage when it came to elemental attributes. However, the moment the 4 giant logs exploded, they felt an overwhelming aura of life blotting out the sky and covering the earth. Their own earth element was instantly suppressed. Just like Ji-dong's ultimate dual flames could produce an elemental suppression, Yao Qianshu's ultimate first would also had such an ability. Especially in this situation where with subdued earth, the effect of elemental suppression was immediately displayed. Puff, 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 puff. A huge rain of blood exploded in the air. The second wave of whirlwind guards that rushed up were completely unable to resist the powerful demonic power of the ultimate first wood, and their bodies were instantly riddled with holes. This explosive attack of the ultimate first would showed no signs of exhaustion, and at the same time, it enveloped the remaining 12 whirlwind guards, looking as if it would not stop until it was destroyed. Back then, when Jidong was only a first champion, he had killed an academy teacher who was close to the strength of a triple champion. When he was only a triple champion, he had killed Ji Feng, the second in command of the level 59 Yin Yang Hall. What did he rely on to do that? Other than powerful demonic techniques, what was more important was his own ultimate element. Yao Qianshu, who also had the ultimate element, had more demonic power than these whirlwind guards. How could they possibly be a match for him? Not good, Huang Liming shouted in a low voice. The earth element heaven warrior beside him also realized that something was wrong. In a crisis, the 6 crowned demon masters displayed their powerful strength. The earth element heaven warrior suddenly took a step forward, bent down, and punched the ground. The gravity spell that had disappeared earlier was released once again, and yellow light spread out in a fan shape. Everywhere it passed, the gravity increased greatly. Jidong snorted coldly and said, "It's too late." At the same time that the earth element heaven warrior launched his attack, he had already circled his hands at the same time. The white sun crown above his head instantly changed. The black and white colors appeared at the same time, turning into the yin-yang crown of Bing Ding Double Fire. This was his true strength. As soon as the white color appeared, it instantly turned golden. The ultimate double fire condensed on his palms. 2 dazzling flames instantly condensed in front of him, turning into ultimate double fireballs and flying out. The target was not the earth element heaven warrior, but the ground between him and the battlefield. How much explosive power did the ultimate double fireballs have? It could be said that this was currently the most powerful of Jidong's non-sure kill, single-target demonic techniques. Under the unstable state of Bing Wu Primordial Yang Sacred Fire and Ding Si Helene Fire, a violent explosion occurred the moment they suddenly touched the ground. In the midst of the loud bang, the ultimate double fire magic power appeared along with the ultimate first wood. The terrifying attribute suppression under the effect of the dual attributes was even more intense than the previous ultimate first wood. The powerful explosive force forcibly blocked the earth element heaven warrior's gravity spell for a moment. It was also at this moment that 12 drops of blood had already bloomed around Jidong and Yao Qianshu. The whirlwind guards were all annihilated. Chapter 115. The ground was already dyed red with blood. The eyes of the 16 whirlwind guards were filled with disbelief. They had never expected that 16 against 2 would result in such an outcome. Yao Qianshu had only used one move to annihilate them all, leaving not a single one alive. Huang Liming was also stunned. He knew that Jidong was very strong, and he had never underestimated Jidong. To be able to kill the second in command of the Yin-Yang school, even if luck played a part, Jidong must be quite strong himself. However, he did not expect that Yao Qianshu, who was with Jidong, was also so strong. From the looks of it, his level 45 cultivation was probably even higher than Jidong's. It should be known that the 16 whirlwind guards did not belong to the royal family of the Central Empire. They were magician warriors nurtured by another powerful force. These warriors had given up on practicing long-range magic techniques and focused on condensing mana into weapons. Although this would restrict their development, there was no doubt that they were the cream of the crop among magicians of the same level. Relying on the increased speed of the mana weapon boots on their feet and the attack power of the weapons condensed from mana, the 16 whirlwind guards had even killed a 5-crown champion when they attacked together. However, when faced with these 2 people, Yao Qianshu had actually killed them all by himself. Moreover, it was only a single skill. The contempt in the Earth Heaven scholar's eyes had already disappeared, and his expression became solemn. He finally understood why Huang Liming had called him along. From the looks of it, it was not just to restrict Jidong's flying ability. 2 6-crowned Heaven scholars against a 3-crowned Fire Grandmaster and a 4-crowned Wood Grandmaster. They actually had to raise their spirits and focus on facing these 2 people. Jidong and Yao Qianshu looked at each other and smiled. This was not the first time they had worked together. Without a doubt, they were quite satisfied with each other's abilities. Yao Qinshu looked at the corpses scattered around him and chuckled. He said, "It must have cost a lot to train these people. It's a pity that they met me. Earth element?" Earth element. The Earth Heavenly Scholar snorted angrily and said, "Brat, I'll let you know the power of the Earth element. Old Huang, don't make a move. I'll take care of these two brats." Huang Liming nodded and said, "Be careful. They are not easy to deal with. If necessary, summon your mount." Wu Tu glanced at Huang Liming and said, "Do you need to summon mounts to deal with two juniors? You're underestimating me." Huang Liming shook his head inwardly. Everything about this fellow was good except for his arrogance. However, Huang Liming still reminded him, "Don't harm Ji Dong's life. Master ordered us to bring him back alive and in one piece." "Got it," the Earth Heavenly Scholar replied and walked over with large strides. Even though Yao Qianshu was mocking the other party, when the fifth Earth Heaven Scholar really walked out, his expression also became solemn. Regardless of whether it was him or Ji Dong, they both knew very well that 6 crowns was an important dividing line for a Devil Master. It was just like the difference between 2 crowns and 3 crowns. Even if there was only a slight difference, the difference in strength was like heaven and earth. Yao Qianshu took a step forward and stood in front of Ji Dong. He said, "I'll be the main attacker. You support me." "All right." Ji Dong's reply was simple and powerful. The first wood element countered the earth element. Yao Qianshu's attack was clearly better than his. A green light flashed. This time, Yao Qianshu did not restrain his devil power. When the green light appeared, it immediately turned into an emerald green color. The first wood devil power was suddenly released. Even though the Earth Heavenly Scholar had the strength of 6 crowns, he could not help but feel a chill in his heart when he sensed the huge devil power fluctuation. His devil power had not surpassed Yao Qianshu's 3 crowns, and the suppression of his attributes had already appeared. In front of the first wood devil power, his earth element devil power was immediately suppressed, as if it could collapse at any time. The previously condensed devil power was also instantly destroyed. First wood ultimate? How is that possible? You're only 4 crowns. How can you have the first wood ultimate? The Earth Heavenly Scholar looked at Yao Qianshu in confusion. Yao Qianshu calmly stuffed a devil power recovery pill into his mouth and said, "I'm too lazy to explain to ignorant people like you. Aren't you going to fight? Come on. Are you afraid?" "Afraid?" The Earth Heavenly Scholar snorted angrily. His eyes flashed, and a strong earthy yellow light bloomed once again. Above his head, the 6 crowns of the Earth Element Sun crown shone brightly. Around his body, the yellow light of the Earth Element condensed into a huge sphere, enveloping his entire body. That's right. The first wood ultimate could suppress his Earth Element devil power. However, in terms of level, there was a difference of 21 levels between the two. Relying on his strong devil power, the Earth Heavenly Scholar laid multiple layers of defense around his body. The outermost layer was suppressed, but the inner layer was not affected. When Huang Liming, who was holding the line for him, saw this, he could not help but secretly nod. He thought to himself that he could also use the same method to deal with Ji Dong. Although the ultimate attribute was powerful, without enough devil power, it was not enough to pose a threat to the 6 crowns powerhouses. In the air, the rich earth elements surged, madly expelling the other elements. Although the Earth Heavenly Scholar looked very arrogant on the surface, he did not underestimate Yao Qianshu. To be able to kill 16 guards with one blow with the strength of a 4 crowns powerhouse, this kind of strength was not as simple as a strong devil skill. Moreover, the opponent in front of him had the ultimate devil power. At this time, controlling the elements, he wanted to fundamentally cut off Yao Qianshu's supply. After the devil power reached a certain level, if you wanted to exert the strongest devil skill, it was not as simple as the output of your own devil power. It must be combined with the attributes of heaven and earth in order to exert the strongest attack power or defense power. This Earth Heavenly Scholar could be said to be somewhat despicable, using his devil power advantage to suppress Yao Qianshu, making him unable to exert his full strength. Yao Qianshu snorted coldly and said, "Is that all you have?" The emerald light shone brightly, and behind him, the azure dragon totem appeared. Following the appearance of the azure dragon totem, a circular ring of light enveloped the azure dragon totem, and the green runes, like the scales of the azure dragon, filled the range of the ring. Suddenly, Yao Qianshu's entire body lit up, becoming incomparably transparent, as if it was completely carved out of jade. An incomparably huge life aura exploded, and the surging earth element in the air melted like ice and snow when it encountered the fluctuations of the life magic. Even the layers of earth magic released by the earth heavenly scholar no longer had any effect at this moment. His devil power attribute was once again completely suppressed by Yao Qianshu's extreme first wood attribute. Impossible! The earth heavenly scholar couldn't help but exclaim. At this moment, the devil power that Yao Qianshu was releasing was clearly not as simple as level 45. Moreover, the first wood element in the earth was condensing towards his body at an extremely crazy speed. The azure dragon totem behind Yao Qianshu coiled around the ring, and the magic runes kept flashing. His jade-like body kept emitting incomparably huge devil power fluctuations. He himself also assumed a strange posture, with his right hand in front of his chest and his left hand behind him. His legs were wide apart, and his head was slightly tilted back as he stared at the sky. The emerald light also became more and more intense, and the devil power around his body rose like a rocket into the sky. It had already reached an extremely terrifying level. Even Ji Dong, who was behind him, couldn't help but take a few steps back. For the earth heavenly scholar and Huang Liming, the scene in front of them was impossible. The energy accumulated by Yao Qianshu at this time had completely exceeded the level that he should have at level 45. His extreme first wood magic power had climbed to the level that made the two heavenly soldier powerhouses feel fear. It could be imagined to what extent it had reached. Yao Qianshu himself also showed a painful expression on his face. Obviously, these elemental magic power were not completely under his control. Huang Liming and the others didn't know what was going on, but Ji Dong was very clear. What Yao Qianshu was displaying at this time should be one of the first wood array Azure Dragon array, and its purpose was to condense elements. Seeing Yao Qianshu's approach, Ji Dong couldn't help but secretly admire him. They could be said to have a tacit understanding. In the third Fire Vermilion Bird array, Ji Dong learned 3 arrays, and 2 of them were the same as Yao Qianshu's. One was teleportation, and the other was the elemental condensation in front of them. Its full name was Yang Fire Condensation Array. Yao Qianshu's should be the Yang Wood Condensation Array. The role of this array was not only in battle, but also during cultivation. Imagine displaying such an array in the process of cultivation, instantly increasing the elemental concentration around the body to an extremely condensed level. Wouldn't cultivation yield twice the result with half the effort? Learning this spirit formation first would naturally be of great benefit to their future cultivation. At this time, the 5th Earth Heavenly Scholar was already greatly shocked, but he was, after all, experienced in displaying it. He was not frightened by the scene in front of him and quickly reacted. Under the gaze of Ji Dong, the 5th Earth Heavenly Scholar let out a long roar towards the sky. The 6th sun crown on his head shattered in an instant, turning into 6 rays of yellow light that revolved around his body. Then, a big silver bird suddenly rose into the sky. It was the 5th Earth Totem, the sky. Although the strong earth element was suppressed by the attribute when it appeared in the sky, under the cover of the big silver bird, the 5th Earth Heavenly Scholar's expression became a little more relaxed. The 6 rays of yellow light rose in an instant, and all of them flowed into the body of the big silver bird. Suddenly, the big silver bird's body shone brightly, and it flapped its wings and flew high. In the blink of an eye, it had already rushed into the sky, turning into a silver light spot and disappeared. At the same time that the big silver bird disappeared, the whole sky had turned yellow. The dignified and oppressive atmosphere made people feel a little breathless. The fifth Earth Heavenly Scholar's face also looked a little pale. He clenched his right hand into a fist and pointed forward. A powerful thought suddenly shrouded Yao Qianshu, who was fighting against him. Then, Jidong found that the sky suddenly darkened, and tiny black spots began to appear in the air. Although the air was full of the huge first wood magic condensed by the Yang wood condensing array, it was also full of extremely violent earth element. At this moment, the earth element seemed to have broken free from the attribute suppression of the extreme first wood. That crazy aura was extremely close to Jidong's own extreme Yang fire. Ultimate skill, Meteor Fall. The fifth Earth Heavenly Scholar roared, and from his body, a yellow beam of light suddenly rose straight into the sky, as if connecting the sky and the earth, shocking people. In the air, the black spots had become clear. They were not black, but yellow, the yellow of the earth element. Each yellow light spot was round, and in the process of falling, the sky became darker. A sure kill skill. This was the sure kill skill of a 6 crowns level powerhouse. Jidong only felt an indescribable pressure in his chest, giving him a painful feeling that he was about to spit blood. Even if it was the same ultimate skill, the power displayed by different people would be different. There was also a difference between the ultimate skills. There was no doubt that the ultimate skill used by the Earth Element Heaven Scholar in front of him under the pressure of Yao Qianshu's extreme first wood was definitely a high-end ultimate skill of the Earth Element. It was a top ultimate skill. Jidong and Yao Qianshu were very unfamiliar with this ultimate skill, but Huang Liming, who was standing not far away, was shocked. Meteor Fall, this ultimate skill could be said to be the dream of all Earth Element magicians. As a top ultimate skill, what was the biggest feature? It was that when a magic power was increased to a certain extent, it could be transformed into a super ultimate skill with enough power to destroy the world. Naturally, the fifth Earth Heavenly Scholar in front of him could not do it, but one day, when his magic power was increased to the 9 crowns level, it was completely possible to achieve. As long as he could turn each falling meteor into the form of the Earth Element Divine Beast in the sky, then this ultimate skill would be upgraded to a super ultimate skill, Sky Meteor Shower. Shock. Only the word shock could describe Huang Lifing's current mood. He had always thought that his strength surpassed this Wutu Heaven Scholar. Although the two of them had almost the same magic power, in terms of the use and control of magic skills, Huang Lifing was better than the Wutu Heaven Scholar. But now, seeing the ultimate skill that the Wutu Heaven Scholar had used, Huang Lifing understood that it was probably impossible for him to win. The outcome of the battle was hard to predict. He did not expect that this seemingly arrogant guy would be so patient and secretly learn this kind of top-notch ultimate skill. And at the same time that the fifth Earth Heavenly Scholar released the ultimate skill of Meteor Fall, Yao Qianshu's eyes completely turned emerald. He pointed both hands to the sky and the ground and roared at the sky. All the emerald light rose up. Emerald Azure Dragon. Chapter 116. Emerald Azure Dragon. Along with Yao Qianshu's loud shout, the ultimate first wood magic broke out in an instant, and the surging energy fluctuations burst out with unparalleled huge energy in an instant. The vast life aura made Jidong and Huang Liming, who both had third fire magic, feel that their third fire was indescribably nourished. Not far in front of them, the New Oding Forest seemed to emit a layer of misty green gas, which combined with the extreme first wood demonic energy, causing the dazzling emerald luster to become even more lustrous. The vast and boundless life energy instantly condensed in mid-air, transforming into a huge emerald dragon that was 10 feet long. It soared into the sky, its figure unfolded, and its 5 claws tore through the air, charging towards the fifth Earth Heaven Warrior's ultimate skill, Meteor Fall. Yes, in terms of magic, there was a qualitative gap between Yao Qianshu and his opponent. But if Meteor Fall was a top ultimate skill, then the Emerald Azure Dragon used by Yao Qianshu was the ultimate skill of the first wood. Perhaps to some extent, It could not be compared with Ji Dong's monarch's ultimate skill, but its degree of strength was not much different, especially when Yao Qianshu's own magic surpassed Ji Dong's. Before entering the underground palace, he had tried this ultimate skill, but it had never succeeded. At this moment, with the huge effect of the sun wood condensing the array, Yao Qianshu suddenly condensed a monstrous green light and succeeded in one fell swoop. The huge emerald dragon was like a real creature, and every piece of armor on its body was shining with emerald brilliance, with fine edges and corners. If it wasn't for the fact that it was condensed by magic, one would definitely think that it was the real first wood divine beast, the Azure Dragon. Huang Liming looked at the scene in front of him dumbfoundedly and said, "How can young people nowadays be so strong?" The sky was yellow, but the earth had turned into an emerald brilliance. The emerald Azure Dragon climbed up to the meteor fall clouds without fear, and an emerald brilliance constantly spewed out from the dragon's mouth. Each emerald light could smash more than one meteor falling from the sky. The surging mana fluctuations caused the sky to distort, and no matter how powerful the meteors were, not a single one could land on the ground. This was the New Oding Forest, and in the forest, wood element magicians were undoubtedly the most advantageous, and Yao Qianshu relied on his own yang, wood condensing magic circle, to make full use of this point. Like eating jelly beans, he constantly threw magic power recovery pills into his mouth, and at the same time, the yang wood condensing magic circle behind him was also raised to the limit. Influenced by the power of the Emerald Azure Dragon in the air, Ji Dong took a deep breath, and his eyes shone brightly. The wings on his back spread out, and he also looked up to the sky and roared. The black and white yin-yang crown on top of his head instantly turned into a white sun crown under the effect of the divine lock, yin-yang whirlpool, and the yin-yang whirlpool. The blazing extreme yang fire burst out in an instant, and the dazzling golden light echoed the emerald brilliance emitted from Yao Qianshu's body. The golden ring also appeared behind him, and the golden vermilion bird totem spread its wings, and cone-shaped magic patterns surrounded the vermilion bird's body. It was the yang fire condensing magic circle. Wood feeds fire, and under the influence of the first wood condensing magic circle, Ji Dong's yang fire condensing magic circle became extremely hot. Although his mana was inferior to Yao Qianshu's, under the effect of wood feeds fire, coupled with his own vermilion bird inner armor, the aura he emitted at this time was no less than Yao Qianshu's. In the air, the game between the Emerald Azure Dragon and the meteor fall had reached its climax. Huge energy waves continued to collide, constantly producing extremely terrifying explosions. The color of the Emerald Azure Dragon gradually faded, and the meteor fall in the air gradually decreased. Although they were using top-notch ultimate skills, they were still ultimate skills after all, and not super ultimate skills with the powerful ability to destroy heaven and earth. In terms of self-replenishment, Yao Qianshu, who knew alchemy, had a unique advantage. There was no doubt about this. Although his opponent was powerful, his mana recovery speed was far faster than that of the Fifth Earth Heavenly Scholar. The Fifth Earth Heavenly Scholar also held the crystal nucleus in his hand, but it took time to absorb mana through the crystal nucleus, and the recovery speed of Yao Qianshu's own mana recovery potion was obviously much faster. Moreover, his ultimate first would had an attribute suppression effect on the Fifth Earth Heavenly Scholar. The opponent's mana was higher than his, but in the case of maintaining the ultimate skill, the consumption was also much greater than his. Under such circumstances, the first wood saint actually relied on the powerful effect of Yang, wood condensing magic circle, to gradually gain the upper hand. The Fifth Earth Heavenly Scholar's face had become more and more unsightly. With 4 crowns against 6 crowns, he could still gain the upper hand in the battle of ultimate skills. This seemed impossible to anyone, but Yao Qianshu did it. Even his opponent had to admit the strength of the first wood saint at this time. However, 6 crowns were 6 crowns after all. In addition to the gap between mana and 4 crowns, there were other advantages. A low roar sounded from the mouth of the Fifth Earth Heavenly Scholar. He was suppressed too much. The attribute suppression of the ultimate first would made it impossible for his 6 crowns level mana to exert its true power. Seeing that the emerald azure dragon in the air was about to eat up the meteor fall, he finally couldn't care about maintaining his face anymore. In that low roar, a yellow light split open behind him. There was also a low roar, and the earth seemed to tremble. Then, a giant yellow bear stepped out of the cracked light. The body of this giant bear was 4 meters tall, and its whole body was full of a wild aura. Its thick body was like a small mountain. As soon as it appeared, the aura of the 5th Earth Heavenly Scholar suddenly became different. The giant bear roared towards the sky, and its 2 bare paws slapped its chest hard. A circle of strong yellow light burst out from its body and enveloped the 5th Earth Heavenly Scholar. The expression of the 5th Earth Heavenly Scholar suddenly became much better. Boom! In midair, the last roar sounded. The Emerald Azure Dragon relied on its own ultimate first wood magic power to break all the power of the meteor fall. Although its own light had faded a lot, it won after all. In the competition of ultimate skills, Yao Qianshu, who had 4 crowns, won the final victory. Yao Qianshu pointed his right hand, and the Emerald Azure Dragon in the air made a loud dragon roar. It fell from the sky and went straight to the 5th Earth Heavenly Scholar. The biggest feature of Yao Qianshu's ultimate skill was its continuous attack ability. Jidong's brilliant sun cone won in explosive power, and his Emerald Azure Dragon won in this strong, continuous attack, just like the endless vitality of the first wood magic power itself. Boom! The mountain-like giant bear took a step forward and blocked in front of the 5th Earth Heavenly Scholar. Its 2 bare paws were raised at the same time, and the surging yellow light showed an explosive expansion. Its 2 bare paws slapped the ground hard, and like an earthquake, at least tens of square meters of ground exploded at the same time. Countless soil and stones flew into the air. The giant bear's paws slapped forward again, and the soil and stones suddenly condensed together. Under the cover of the yellow light it emitted, it condensed into a huge bare paw with a diameter of 5 meters, and it slapped towards the Emerald Azure Dragon. The collision between the two inevitably occurred. The earth shook, and the New-Oding forest seemed to tremble violently. In a loud bang, the giant bear stepped back 7 or 8 steps in succession before it could stand firm. There were even 2 streams of blood spilling from the corners of its mouth, flowing along its fur to its body, making it look even more ferocious. But the Emerald Azure Dragon in the air also shattered in the air, turning into a little green light that flew in the direction of Yao Qianshu. At this time, the powerful effect of the 5 elements array was revealed. The shattering of the Emerald Azure Dragon made Yao Qianshu spit out a mouthful of blood, but the residual energy after the shattering was not wasted at all. It was forcibly recovered by the Sun Wood Array and absorbed all of it. In this way, although the ultimate skill was broken, Yao Qianshu's own magic power consumption did not exhaust all of his strength at once. Rank 6 Magical Beast, Earth Bear, what is 6 crown 5th Earth Heavenly Scholar. Although Yao Qianshu's voice seemed a little breathless, the sarcasm in his voice was like a sharp knife that pierced into the heart of the 5th Earth Heavenly Scholar. With the strength of a 6 champions, dealing with a 4 champions opponent after using a top killing skill, in the end was still forced by the opponent to summon his magical beast companion, and even his magical beast was injured. He had lost a lot of face. Golden light flickered, and Jidong's body was already in front of Yao Qianshu, replacing him to face the Earth Bear and the 5th Earth Heavenly Scholar. He was the closest to Yao Qianshu, and, at the same time, he was also the one who understood the characteristics of the 5 elements array the best apart from Yao Qianshu. Jidong could feel that Yao Qianshu's magic had already been reduced to a frightening level, and it was impossible for him to launch another attack like that in a short period of time. After all, the opponents were 2 6 crown Heavenly Scholar powerhouses. He had also seen Huang Liming's mount, the Flame Lion. This battle was still very difficult for them. Thick golden flames that were like viscous magma surrounded Jidong's body and burst forth. Huang Liming also took a few steps forward and came to the side of the fifth Earth Heavenly Scholar. Jidong, I think we should talk, Huang Liming said sincerely. Jidong sneered and said, "What do I have to talk about with you?" Huang Liming smiled bitterly and said, "We actually have no ill intentions. We just hope that you can return to Central Plain City with us, and I can guarantee that you won't be harmed. As long as you agree, we can let your friend go right now." "Stop bullshitting." Yao Qianshu, who was standing behind Jidong, couldn't help but say, "Previously, you thought that we weren't a match for you, so you wanted to suppress us. Now that you see that you can't suppress us, you want to use words to break our alliance? Stop dreaming. Even a 3-year-old wouldn't believe your words." Huang Liming said helplessly, "It's precisely because I chased after Jidong before that I was afraid that he wouldn't believe me, so I planned to use force to suppress him. I really won't harm him. Do you really think that you can defeat us? You have also seen the advantage of 6 crowns. I also have a magical beast mount. 4 against 2, the situation of complete advantage and magic power is even. Even if your own magic power has its own special attribute, it's impossible to contend against us." Jidong sneered and said, "You don't need to say any more. It's better to die in glory than to live in dishonor. If you have the ability, then catch us. But I can be sure that even if you can defeat us in the end, one of you two will be buried with us." As he spoke, Jidong suddenly took a deep breath, and his chest suddenly swelled up a bit. His eyes had completely turned into a dazzling golden color, and his whole body suddenly soared. An unprecedented arrogant aura instantly burst out from his body. Even Yao Qianshu, who was behind him, couldn't help but take a few steps back, not daring to get too close to him. And the opponent in front of Jidong was in an even worse situation. Huang Liming clearly felt a kind of terrifying majesty instantly oppressing him, and that incomprehensible, blazing magic power suppressed his own third fire to the extreme. When he fought with Jidong for the first time, there was also a situation of attribute suppression. But this time, facing Jidong again, what he endured was no longer as simple as attribute suppression. The arrogant aura exuded from Jidong's body made him unable to produce a trace of fighting spirit from the bottom of his heart. And Jidong's body also changed at this time. His whole body soared against the wind, and the dazzling golden flame seemed to have become a part of his body, combining with the white sun crown on top of his head. In the blink of an eye, Jidong's body had become 3 meters tall, with his body as the core. The outside was completely condensed by the golden third Wu primordial yang sacred fire, and the sun crown on top of his head turned into a golden crown. The incomparably arrogant, domineering aura, filled with the irresistible arrogance of a king, bloomed in an instant. Whether it was Huang Liming, Wu Tu Heaven Scholar, or the Earth Bear, they all unconsciously revealed fear in their eyes. At this time, the feeling that Jidong gave people was really too terrifying. Although his magic power was only level 38 and had not reached the level of 4 crowns, at this moment, the aura that he released seemed to be invincible. Yes, after igniting the chaotic fire in his body, Jidong had completely refined the will of the 2 kings and integrated it into his body. All of his skills were inherited from the 2 kings. At this moment, with the help of the vermilion bird inner armor, the rapid rotation of the yin-yang vortex, and the maintenance of the yang fire condensation array, finally allowed him to release the aura of the flame monarch. This could be said to be a skill, and if it was really called a skill, then its name could only be 4 words: Monarch's Descent. The flame monarch's descent was a terrifying existence. At this moment, no one could feel the true strength of Jidong, only the incomparable arrogance of the flame monarch. The huge 3-meter-tall body had completely blocked Yao Qianshu, who was behind him. Even the yang fire condensation array he had formed expanded with the change of his body, turning into a huge golden ring with the brand of the vermilion bird totem condensed behind him. Chapter 117. Even Jidong himself did not expect that when he was condensing his magic power and was preparing to use his ultimate skill, Forbidden 100,000 brilliant sun cone nail, such a scene would appear. At this moment, he only felt that the extreme yang fire and his body seemed to have completely fused into one. The vermilion bird inner armor turned into surging energy and condensed with the yang fire in the outside world. An unprecedented feeling of strength filled his whole body. The yang fire formation behind him was the source of this power. The sovereign's pride filled him with the belief that he would win. With one step, Jidong had already rushed towards Huang Liming. The terrifying golden flames turned into a sea of fire in the air. The dazzling golden light, the unparalleled attribute suppression and spiritual pressure made Huang Liming fall back almost without any resistance. At this moment, Huang Liming was shocked to find that he could not mobilize the mana of 6 crowns in his body at all. It should be known that his mana was 3 crowns higher than Jidong's. This was the sovereign's coercion. In a sense, the Flames Sovereign and Dark Flames Sovereign from the underground world were totem-level existences. As the rulers of the underground world, their actual strength and rank were above the heavenly stem divine beasts. Even the 3rd fire divine beast, Vermilion Bird, and the 4th fire divine beast, Flying Serpent, would definitely be defeated if they met the 2 sovereigns. This was also the reason why the Vermilion Bird was not as experienced as it was when it sensed the mana on Jidong's body. At this moment, Jidong had unintentionally launched the Flame Sovereign's descent through the Yang fire condensation array. At this moment, he had reached the pinnacle of the 3rd fire. Although his own mana was not comparable to the level of the Vermilion Bird, the aura on his body was not inferior. As a Binghua heavenly scholar, it could be imagined that Huang Liming would be suppressed under the same attribute. In the face of the extreme Binghua, all of his own magic power was trembling in worship. How could he still use his own strength? Huang Liming quickly retreated and summoned his mount at the same time. However, his retreat also exposed the 5th Earth Divine Warrior and the Earth Bear. Earth subdued fire, and fire gave birth to Earth. However, when strong fire met weak Earth, this would change on its own. The Sovereign's coercion was also used on the Earth Bear and the 5th Earth Divine Warrior at the same time. Although the pressure on their attributes was less than when they faced the First Wood Divine Disciple Yao, Qian Shu, this pressure from the spiritual level made them not feel relaxed at all. At this moment, because the 5th Earth Divine Warrior had used that top-notch ultimate skill, he had not recovered yet, so the Earth Bear naturally became the main attacker. Facing Jidong, the giant bear roared and suddenly rushed forward. 2 huge bear paws slapped towards Jidong at the same time. In order to maximize its attack mana, it did not use any extra magic skills, and only poured all of its surging mana of a Class 6 magical beast into the bear paws. A trace of coldness appeared in Jidong's eyes. Facing the Earth Bear, he did not give in at all. Although the body of the Sovereign's descent was still a bit shorter than the Class 6 magical beast, his actions did not weaken the Flame Sovereign's arrogance in the slightest. Taking a step forward, a brilliant golden light had already burst out. It was the Flame Sovereign's skill, Scorching Sun Devour. This was a demonic skill of extreme flames, and it was even more so the demonic skill of the Flame Sovereign. When it was personally used by the Flame Sovereign after the Sovereign's descent, its power could be imagined. With a loud boom, the body of the Flame Sovereign that Jidong had transformed into trembled violently. The golden flames on his body also surged violently like waves. However, he did not take a single step back. Then, a terrifying situation occurred. The Earth Bear's body had actually turned completely golden, starting from its paws and spreading to its entire body. Even though the Earth Demon in its body was frantically resisting with all its might in an attempt to neutralize the scorching flames, Jidong's second attack from the Flame Sovereign's body had already arrived. Stepping forward once again, the Xingwu Primordial Yang, Sacred Fire, forcibly absorbed the opponent. Bearing the strong impact of the attack, Jidong also used the Scorching Sun Devour to fight against the opponent. This was the opportunity that he needed. He lowered his shoulder and used the Scorching Sun Collapse. It forcibly knocked away the Earth Bear's paws and pressed against its chest. A violent, muffled sound accompanied by the burst of golden flames instantly spread. The Earth Heavenly Scholar could no longer care about recovering his demon power. It should be known that a Devil Master only had one chance to sign a contract with a magical beast in his life. If the Earth Bear died, the blow to him would be difficult to recover from. Ignoring his own safety, the Earth Heavenly Scholar suddenly pounced forward and pressed both of his hands on the Earth Bear's body. The demon power in his body was like a tidal wave, rushing into the Earth Bear's body. While the Earth Bear was resisting the scorching sun devour, the Xingwu primordial yang, sacred fire brought by the scorching sun collapse, had already overlapped. The terrifying Xingwu primordial yang, sacred fire, suddenly erupted from its chest. With a mournful roar, the Earth Bear's body trembled violently. Even though it had a rather strong defense among magical beasts, facing the Flame Monarch body and the powerful attack of the Xingwu primordial yang, sacred fire to the extreme, it still couldn't withstand it. After the scorching sun collapse, it was naturally the last move of the blazing sun, 3 consecutive strikes, scorching sun explosion. The instant the dazzling golden pillar of fire rose, it was also the instant that the Earth Heavenly Scholar poured all of his demon power into the Earth Bear's body. The 6-crown Heavenly Scholar level powerhouse, plus the magical power of a rank 6 magical beast broke out at this moment, the best defensive special effect of the Earth element. The surface of the Earth Bear's hair suddenly condensed a layer of bright crystal, as if covered with a layer of diamond. Although it still screamed under the eruption of the scorching sun explosion, the layer of crystal protecting its body was only burned red and slowly melted. However, it was clear that when the golden flame disappeared completely, the crystal's defense would still not be lost. The biggest characteristic of the 3rd fire magic skill was its explosive power. The instantaneous attack was much more tyrannical than the 1st wood magic skill, but the explosive power was naturally insufficient in the continuity of the attack. This was also the well-known characteristic of the 3rd fire magic skill. In the face of the 3rd fire magic master, as long as he withstood his first wave of strong attacks, it would be much easier to deal with later. The Earth Heavenly Scholar's choice was undoubtedly extremely correct. As long as he helped the Earth Bear withstand this round of attacks, it would not be so easy for Ji Dong to contend with the next counterattack. As long as the Earth Bear could repel or even defeat Ji Dong, then the battle would be over. However, he still ignored one point. That was, Ji Dong's round of attacks did not end with the scorching sun explosion. In the state of the King's descent, Ji Dong's magical power had been temporarily fixed as the 3rd Wu primordial yang sacred fire, and could not be converted to the Ding Si dark Yin spiritual fire through the Yin Yang vortex. However, it was in this case that his own strength was even more terrifying. The scorching sun 3 consecutive strikes was not all of his Flame Monarch skills. An illusory shadow flickered. In an extremely short distance, the Flame Tyrant King's back suddenly flickered into a series of afterimages. His huge palm, which was covered in dazzling golden flames, had already brazenly reached forward. Almost in a flash, that huge golden palm had already tightly grabbed onto the throat of the Earth Bear. This extremely majestic 6-crowned Earth Element magical beast was 4 meters tall and weighed at least 1,000 kilograms. However, at this moment, it was forcibly lifted by the Flame Monarch's huge palm. Bright Sun Hunt. In the midst of Ji Dong's roar, the Flame Monarch's domineering power burst forth perfectly. Even Huang Liming, who had already rushed over on the Flame Lion, could not help but feel suffocated in the air. Yes, even though the scorching sun 3 consecutive strikes was performed by Ji Dong with the Flame Monarch's body, it still could not break the defense of the 6th rank magical beast and the 6-crowned Heavenly Scholar. However, when the Earth Bear was lifted by the Flame Monarch by the throat, the Earth Heavenly Scholar's eyes had already turned gray. Boom! The terrifying golden flames exploded in an instant, and at the same time, the Earth Bear's thick neck also exploded. A bear head the size of a millstone soared into the sky, but strangely, not a single drop of blood flowed out. The wound on the Earth Bear's neck was completely burnt, and the blood in its body was instantly evaporated by the extreme yang fire. Its huge body fell to the ground with a loud bang, and a perfectly round yellow crystal core also leaped into the air and was engulfed by the golden flames on Jidong's body and disappeared without a trace. No! The Earth Heavenly Scholar roared almost crazily. The death of his magical beast companion was a huge blow to him. At this moment, he had already completely forgotten about Huang Liming's words to not hurt Jidong. He roared crazily towards the sky, and the earth element magical power that was originally dim due to excessive consumption instantly ignited. The six-crowned Earth-Sun crown above his head condensed again, and in the next moment, it actually started burning intensely, and the magical waves on his body increased exponentially. "Brother Zheng, don't!" Huang Liming shouted. Yao Qianshu, who had just recovered some of his magical power, also shouted at the same time, "Be careful, Jidong. He's burning his sun crown. He's going to fight to the death." As he spoke, he slapped both his hands at the same time, and a strong emerald luster shot straight at Jidong's back with the help of the Yangwood formation. A trace of cold divine light flickered in Jidong's eyes. The Flame Sovereign's huge body showed no signs of fear, nor would it retreat. The Sovereign's arrogance burst forth in an instant, and the huge golden flames suddenly burned even more violently. As he took a step forward, the surging golden flames obscured Jidong's face. Would begets fire, and the extreme first would begets the extreme third fire. Even Huang Liming, who was about to pounce on him, felt the terrifying energy that was enough to threaten his life. At this moment, the strong golden flames instantly condensed. Jidong raised his right fist in front of him and his left fist behind his body. The Flame Sovereign's figure instantly exploded like a cannonball, and a huge cone-shaped flame that was 5 meters long and shining with dazzling golden magic patterns instantly bloomed. Forbidden 100,000 brilliant sun cone nail. The profound meaning of the Flame Sovereign's sure kill skill was released by the Flame Sovereign himself, and it was completely different from the 2 times Jidong used it. Even if it was a Wutu Heaven Warrior burning his Wutu Sun Crown, it would still take time. However, the moment Jidong used the Bright Sun Hunt to kill the Earth Bear, this powerful sure kill technique had already erupted. "Jidong, show mercy!" Huang Liming let out a loud roar. At the same time, he flew towards the back of the Wutu Heaven Scholar. As the saying goes, the onlooker sees the situation clearly. Even though the Wutu Heaven Scholar was burning his sun crown, he could clearly see that the power of Jidong's ultimate skill was probably even stronger than the Emerald Dragon released by Yao Qianshu. It was definitely not something the Wutu Heaven Scholar could resist in his current state. In order to save him in time, Huang Liming could no longer care about anything else. He leaped up from the back of the Flaming Lion, and with the help of the Flaming Lion's body, he arrived behind the Earth Heaven Warrior like a cannonball. He used all his strength to turn his palms into 2 balls of blazing third fire and injected them into the Earth Heaven Warrior's body. Among the 5 elements, fire gave birth to earth, and Yang fire gave birth to Yang earth. With the help of Huang Liming, the Earth Heaven Warrior's originally exhausted Yang fire magic instantly burst forth, and his entire body had already turned into a yellow ball of light. The crystal that had appeared on the body of the Earth Bear previously appeared on the surface of the ball of light, wanting to directly resist Jidong's Flame Sovereign skill. Brilliant Sun Cone Nail. Whir! Jidong did not immediately release his brilliant Sun Cone Nail. Seeing that Huang Liming was pouncing towards him, he had already lost the best opportunity to kill his opponent. He actually spread his wings and forcefully stopped in midair for a moment. At the same time, he called out to his comrades. A golden-red radiance flew out from Jidong's right wrist. Accompanied by a sonorous phoenix cry, Eclipse Phoenix Huer's entire body burst forth with an extremely powerful Yang fire radiance. Magic patterns directly appeared around her body. Huer actually used her own body to condense another Yang fire formation and directly imprinted it on the brilliant sun cone. In an instant, the originally dazzling brilliant sun cone's radiance completely disappeared. It looked like a solid object made of pure gold. In the next moment, gold and yellow, the brilliant sun cone and the diamond-like defensive sphere suddenly collided. Boom! A huge pillar of light shot into the sky. Immediately after, an unparalleled shockwave suddenly burst forth. Saint Jiamu, who was not far away, only felt an irresistible force coming towards him. His body had already been swept up and sent flying far away. Within a radius of 300 meters, all the plants were uprooted and turned into ashes in midair. The center of the explosion had turned into a huge golden fireball that instantly spread and then instantly contracted. An almost insane amount of energy rampaged in the air. Every single wave of energy was filled with a destructive aura. All the elements in the air were swept away in an instant. They were not devoured, but devoured by the terrifying, explosive power of the extreme yang fire. The golden light and the crazy aura gradually dissipated. In the center of the battlefield, there was a huge pit that made people speechless. The pit had a diameter of 50 meters and a depth of about 5 meters. Furthermore, this pit was actually slowly expanding. Because the edges of the pit had appeared golden red, the soil and stones were slowly melting in this golden red color.